Imagine a tournament where every Pokemon is one player's signature partner, where someone using Incineroar means that nobody else in the entire tournament can use it. In a tournament like this, every team would be completely unique, full of Pokemon that trainer is willing to bet are better than all the rest. Imagine a tournament where there is no one Pokemon dominating the field, where Gholdengo and Rillaboom are Pokemon that you only have to face once rather than every other round. Imagine a tournament where Pokemon that normally can't keep up are suddenly not only usable, but the stars of the show when the right moment arises. Imagine a tournament that takes everything that you know about competitive Pokemon and throws it out the window. But while this sounds nice, there is an elephant in the room, a glaring problem with this concept, a flaw that threatens to ruin the entire tournament before a single game is played. If every Pokemon can only be used once, then whoever gets to use the most strong game-warping Pokemon will definitely come out on top. Surely the only thing worse than playing Gholdengo, Rillaboom, and Incineroar every other round is when one player gets to use all of them and everyone else is left with scraps, right? Well, that would be a problem, but it won't be here, because in this tournament, the better a Pokemon is, the more costly they are to use, and the more you have to think twice about whether or not they're actually worth it. But before I break down how the tournament works, I should probably tell you just what this tournament is. Pokemon Draft League is one of my favorite ways of playing Pokemon, and it's unlike anything else the game can offer. I first started playing in Draft Leagues shortly after I started making videos, back in the early Sun and Moon era, and I quickly fell in love. Unlike most tournaments, which take place over the course of one weekend, a draft league happens over the course of months. And because of this, you're able to change the moves, items, and abilities of your Pokemon every single week. In other words, every battle has you trying your best to counter team your opponent using the Pokemon that you have, while they're trying to do the exact same thing. It's a challenge that asks you to bring out the full potential of your Pokemon week after week, considering moves and items that you would never use except to take on one very specific threat. I played a lot of Draft League during Sun and Moon and during the beginning of Sword and Shield, but I haven't entered one in almost 5 years. It's not that I stopped having fun, I just got too busy, and I wasn't really sure how the weekly battle video style that Draft League uses would translate into the new edited content that I was trying to do. However, for the past 6 months now, I've been really missing Draft League, and I realized that right now, in the time before Champions releases, is the best time for me to come back and give it another shot. And if you're watching this, it means that I have at least some idea of how to make it work as a video. So, after half a decade, it's time to return to my roots and throw my hat in the ring once more. But immediately, I ran into a problem. There were no draft leagues currently going on for me to compete in. So I did the only reasonable thing, and I made my own. This is the Wolfey Draft League. In this league, each player must draft exactly 10 Pokemon. No more, no less. Even though you only bring 6 Pokemon to the battle each week, by having 10 on your team, you can mix and match which one to use when, meaning you're not just going to lose because of a bad matchup, and meaning your opponents can't just counter team your team of 6, they've got to cover for all 10. But not every Pokemon is allowed. We'll be following the same Regulation H rule set that the current format of competitive Pokemon is using, meaning all legendary and paradox Pokemon are banned. But don't let that lull you into a false sense of security. You can throw everything you know about this format right out the window. So each of us will be drafting 10 Pokemon that are legal in Regulation H. But how do you actually draft these Pokemon? What does it even mean to draft? In this tournament, every single Pokemon is assigned a point value, ranging from 1 to 20. And the better a Pokemon is, the more expensive it'll be. Want Incineroar? Sure, you can have it, no problem. But it will cost you 19 of your 100 points. 100 points to draft 10 Pokemon means your average needs to be 10 per Pokemon. 19 is a bit above that. And here's where one of the quirks of Draft League comes into play. Is it actually worth using the most powerful Pokemon when the cost is so steep? Or are there Pokemon that can do similar things to the biggest threats that are much more affordable? Incineroar is 19 points, but its pre-evolution Torracat is only 8. Is the GOAT of competitive Pokemon actually worth 11 more points? Is Incineroar and a 1-point Mon like Numel worth more than Torracat and Mimikyu or Torracat and Milotic? These are the kind of tough questions you have to ask yourself when you're playing Draft League. Every one of us has reviewed the draft board, so there aren't any glaring oversights. You're not going to find Sneasler chilling in the 6-point column unexpectedly. All of the most used Pokemon are accounted for in the top tiers, but don't let that that fool you. There are some real diamonds in the rough that you can get for a good bargain, but only if you know where to look. Because a normal Pokemon that's dominating competitive play might not even be worth using in Draft League. In a normal tournament, how good a Pokemon is depends largely on how good they are into the field generally. A Pokemon like Sneasler is considered good because its fighting and poison typing hits many Pokemon for neutral or for super effective damage, and Dire Claw has a huge chance of getting a status condition. But remember, Draft League is all about counter teaming, and so here, how good a Pokemon is depends largely on how flexible they are and on how easy they are to counter. Again, let's take Sneasler. Ghost types are a nightmare for it, as they're immune to its fighting moves and resist its poison ones. If you're going up against Sneasler, you could just run Terra Ghost on all 6 of your Pokemon. Moreover, Sneasler has a quadruple weakness to Psychic, meaning that it's always in danger of going down to a stray Psychic attack. You better be prepared for Terra Ghost on any Pokemon you wanted to attack, or Covert Cloak, Lumberry, and Safeguard shutting down your Dire Claws, and for Psychic moves on Pokemon you didn't even know got them. Electabuzz would never run Psychic at a traditional tournament, but here, bye-bye Sneasler. The other axis to consider is, as I said, flexibility. In a traditional tournament, how many good moves a Pokemon could learn is irrelevant, as you're locked into whichever 4 moves you picked when the tournament began. But here, you can change your set every single week, and the more viable moves and items that a Pokemon can use, the harder it is to predict. As an example, let's talk about another poison type. Gengar. Gengar is 12 points, 6 cheaper than Sneasler. But truthfully, I would rather have Gengar on my team. If you were to go to a tournament in person and play against a Gengar, odds are that it would probably be holding the Focus Sash item and using Protect, Icy Wind, Sludge Bomb, and Shadow Ball. But in Draft League, there is so much more that you can do. Facing off against a fast team, try Trick Room Bulky Gengar. Opponent has a fast and frail attacker, Choice Scarf Gengar. Opponent is a team with a bunch of slow setup Pokemon, Taunt Gengar. Opponent lacks burst offense, Choice Specs Gengar. Will-O-Wisp, Disable, Nasty Plot, Acid Spray, Thunderwave, Toxic Spikes, Perish Song. These aren't even all the good options. And that's not even talking about all the different items that Gengar can use in the right circumstances, like Assault Vest and Life Orb. Compare this to Sneasler, who has a much more limited move pool and far fewer good items that it can run. And you'll start to understand just why Draft League is so fascinating. So, how do you actually draft Pokemon onto your team? With something called a snake draft. In a snake draft, player 1 picks, then player 2, so on and so forth until the last player, which in this case is player 8, at which point player 8 then gets to pick again, and the draft snakes its way back up. And this is, in my opinion, a huge part of what makes Draft League so difficult. Because remember, each Pokemon can only be taken by one player. And if somebody else grabs the Pokemon that you wanted, there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. This is fundamentally different than the auction tournament I hosted, which used a similar concept where every Pokemon was unique, but you could bid for the Pokemon. So when I really wanted our Charlodon, I could spend 40% of my budget to get it. Here, if somebody else takes our Charlodon and that's the Pokemon that I wanted, tough luck. So prepping for a draft is extremely difficult. Because sure, maybe you work out a super efficient strategy full of Pokemon with great synergy together, but there's no guarantee that you'll get all of them. However, preparation is super important. You need to be really intentional about making sure the 10 Pokemon you draft can handle anything your opponents throw at you. And so, I decided to build my strategy to be as flexible as possible, all anchored around one expensive pick that I need to make sure that I get. Ursaluna Blood Moon. Ursaluna Blood Moon is a whopping 20 points. The most expensive a Pokemon can be, but I think it's worth it because it meets every criteria that I want. First, it's flexible. Thanks to its speed stat, it works both in Trick Room and Tailwind, and it doesn't even need speed control to be good. It has a ton of good sets that it can run, like an Assault Vest bulky set, or a Life Orb explosive set, or Calm Mind setup, and there's even more. And it's extremely difficult to counter given that its signature ability Mind's Eye lets its normal moves hit ghost types, which normally you'd use to counter a strong normal type attacker. Given that the only other types that resist normal are weak to ground, there are very few Pokemon that can stand up to its offense. And with its good bulk and typing, it's also nearly impossible to get a surprise KO with an unexpected move. In my opinion, it might be the single strongest Pokemon in the format. But have my competitors realized that? Because I'm not playing in this tournament alone. I've invited 7 other Pokemon content creators to draft alongside me, building out their own unique teams and grabbing up the strongest Pokemon that they can. Each of us in the league will be acting as coach of a team, in the spirit of a real sports league. The only difference is we won't be coaching other people, but instead our team of Pokemon. One cohesive unit. unified under the banners of their coach. Last time I competed, I coached the DC Dracovish, an ode to my favorite Pokemon from Sword and Shield. But it's a new generation now, and Dracovish isn't in the game, which is probably for the best. That Pokemon is broken. But that means that I need a new look. But this time, I want a team that feels timeless. Something I can stick with for a long time, no matter which Pokemon are in the game. Something that captures the essence of me, of my channel. So I am proud to introduce you to the team that I'll be coaching this season, the Washington DC Parish. Now, obviously everyone watching this video is thinking the same thing, which is, holy cow, that is so sick. I want to wear that on my body or on my furniture. And the good news is that you can. Congratulations, you can. You've done it. You've predicted the future. Because through the end of 2025, you are able to purchase DC Parish merch, apparel, goods, and not services, never mind, not services, but goods for sure. We got shirts, we got sweatshirts, we have these really sick desk mats. Actually, a viewer sent this picture in, which I think looks pretty cool. This is not stock. This is a real viewer who purchased the merch. Also hats and beanies. I like these a lot. Again, this is limited time only, so if you want to get some, make sure you do it before the end of the year. And buying the merch not only supports the channel, but also allows you to look super sick, super cool, super poggers. No one's buying the merch anymore. Oh man. Now, let's meet the competition, introduced in the order that they'll be drafting. First, James Beck and the Jub Life Piplups. He's one of the best VGC players in the world, making it to the semifinals of the World Championships twice, and top cutting this year with a creative team featuring Regieleki. He's got a ton of experience in both Draft League and VGC, and he's one of the top threats to win the whole thing. Second, Joey Pokieaim MD, representing the LA Wakers. In my opinion, Joey is the king of Draft League. He plays more draft than anyone I know, and boy is he good at it. Joey actually agreed to be in this league despite the fact that he was already playing in 4 other leagues at the same time. He's doing 5 draft leagues at once. Joey has won more draft leagues than most of us have entered, and where he really shines is his creativity. He'll find ways of using Pokemon that nobody else would consider. If anyone is gonna find the gems in the rough, it's gonna be him. Third, Aaron Cybertron Zeng and his Melbourne Rotoms. One of my best friends, one of the best VGC players, casters, and creators, Aaron excels at everything that he does. He's also been doing draft about as long as I have, and he placed second in the last league he entered. What makes Aaron scary is his ability to walk the line between creative sets and classic ones, understanding when a Pokemon needs something way out of left field in order to shine, and when the strongest general set is good in a matchup. If you aren't careful, he'll lull you into a false sense of security, then finish you off before you know what happened. Fourth, Mount and the Immunity Idols. He's the one who beat Aaron in the finals of that last league, and he looked stylish while doing it. Mount is known for his preparation. Despite that last league being his first time playing VGC,
hasn't really dabbled much in VGC.
He still managed to win the whole thing thanks to his quick thinking and prep time.
Is there an out still? The out is him going for Protect.
In some ways, he's a wild card, since this is only his second VGC draft league. But don't underestimate him, or he might be winning back-to-back leagues. Fifth pick is yours truly and the DC Parish. My biggest strength in draft is, in my opinion, my team building. I excel at finding bizarre sets for Pokemon that work perfectly in each individual matchup. Because of this, I value drafting Pokemon with tons of options so I can customize them for each opponent. Sixth is Nekkra and the shout-casting Sylveons. One of the best casters in esports and one of the kindest people I know, Rose is also a terrifying VGC player. Her biggest strength is her wide-ranging knowledge of different teams and cores. When she entered the auction tournament that I hosted, she was able to get nearly an entire established team, despite that most of us had to settle for teams held together by duct tape and an exploding ball. She'll likely use that wide-ranging knowledge to again identify strong cores that are cheap for their power level and build a well-balanced team around that. Seventh is Shady Penguin and the New York Mankeys. Shady's one of the goats of Pokemon YouTube, a veteran in the scene who's even done some VGC casting of his own back in the day. His strength is his experience. Shady has played VGC, he's casted VGC, and he's played in tons of draft leagues before. He's going to be real tough to catch off guard, both in the battles and in the turbulence of the draft itself. Throwing your opponent off is a great way to win games easily, but you probably shouldn't try that against someone like Shady. Last but certainly not least is Uzi and the Thunderclap Titans. Here's a fun fact that you might not know. Uzi was actually the first editor to ever work on this channel, though he's mostly known for being a draft league fiend. If you ever watched my video of 1 billion lions versus one of every Pokemon from years and years ago, Uzi was the one who edited that. Here's the thing about Uzi. This guy loves draft league, and he will put the time in to make sure that his preparation is top notch. Like Mount, his preparation is exactly what makes him scary to go up against. With his passion for draft league, Uzi will do everything in his power to make sure he's showing up more prepared than you are, and it's preparation that often determines the winner. A stacked roster, sure to put on a good show. But what I'm worried about right now isn't only my competition, it's the draft itself. Specifically, the order that I'm picking. Fifth. In my opinion, the best position to be in a draft league is on the end, either 1st or 8th. The reason is that these 2 spots get to combo their picks, taking 2 at a time. When you pick 2 Pokemon back to back, you make sure that nobody else can steal a Pokemon that you want. The closer you are to the ends, the less likely it is that somebody else takes a Pokemon that you had your eye on. And if you agree with that reasoning, then you can understand that the worst position to be in a draft is in the middle, which is exactly where I am. And at 5th pick, there is a very real chance that somebody else takes Ursaluna Blood Moon before I can grab it. And if they do, there is nothing that I can do except to make an entirely new plan. But there's no more time to prep, because the first season of the Wolfey Draft League is officially starting. Hello, it's me from like 3 months in the future, because that's how long we've been working on this. I'm here to break the 4th wall a little bit, okay? Here's what I gotta say. You can have a very real impact on the videos that get made on this channel. And the way you can do that if you're not already subscribed is to subscribe on videos that you like. Being transparent, this video has been a massive project. And while I'm really happy with how it turned out, it has been a lot of work. One of the metrics I'll use to determine whether or not we should do a second season of this draft league is to see how many people subscribe via this video. Anyway, if you're enjoying the video and you're not already subscribed, or if you start to really enjoy the video at some point, please think about it. It helps the channel out a lot and also gives you a way to actually have some agency over what kind of videos that we make here. James is up first, and he has to think carefully about his pick. On the one hand, he's the only player who can take any Pokemon that he wants. On the other hand, by the time he picks again, 14 more Pokemon will be out of the pool. Each player's first pick is in many ways the most important. Traditionally, you take a strong Pokemon with no substitutes, and then you build the rest of your team around it. In fact, 7 out of the 8 players here will do exactly this. And so, James takes Annihilate, a Pokemon with tons of different sets that can take over a game thanks to its signature move, Rage Fist. Next up is Joey, who grabs Archaludon, a Pokemon with 3 good abilities, multiple ways to boost its stats, and 2 valuable types. Aaron is next, and he grabs Koldengo, another steel type out of the pool. Each of the Pokemon picked so far has no substitutes. They each do something fully unique that no other Pokemon can do. Despite their 20-point price tag, they're the first 3 Pokemon picked for good reason. And now there is just one more pick before it's my turn. Mount steps up to draft and takes Ursaluna Blood Moon. And my entire plan falls apart. I built everything around getting this Pokemon, but in Draft League, nothing is guaranteed. Now I need to scramble, and I'm on a timer. If I don't pick within the time limit, my turn will get skipped. Thankfully, for the first pick of the draft only, you've got 24 hours to pick your first Pokemon. So I go back to the draft board and I start looking for other Pokemon that I can build around. The only other 20-point Pokemon left are Dragonite and Ursaluna regular for me, but I personally hate using Pokemon with quadruple weaknesses in Draft League, so I don't want to pick Dragonite as my star. And I do think that regular Ursaluna is just easier to counter than its bipedal brother, so I don't really want to build around it. Unfortunately, as I go through the 19-point Pokemon and then the 18-point Pokemon, I become more and more sure there is no top Pokemon that I want to build my entire team around. Each of them either lacks the explosive ability to take over the game, or they're too easily countered. I don't want to build my entire team around any of them. So, rather than settle for a Pokemon that I'm not excited for, I decide to pivot and do something that bucks conventional Draft League wisdom. Rather than build around one overpowered Pokemon, I instead will draft a team where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. A team without one superstar, but instead a collection of good, reliable threats. However, I don't want to completely throw away the draft plan that I made for Ursaluna. And I realize that while there isn't any one Pokemon that can replace it, there are 2 Pokemon that, when combined, can fill a similar role. But that'll come later. To start, I want to grab a Pokemon with a tool I know that I'll need to make it all work. One of the best abilities in the game, Intimidate. A Pokemon whose fire typing and good support moves make it a thorn in the side of any opponent it goes up against. A Pokemon that I've used to win multiple tournaments over the years. I am talking, of course, about Arcanine. Arcanine. It's Arcanine. Did you think I was talking about Incineroar? Well, I want Arcanine, and I can explain, okay? Don't write an angry comment just yet. You have to hear me out. First, Arcanine is only 16 points compared to Incineroar's 19. And while a 3-point difference might not sound like a lot, literally every point that you can save matters. Moreover, I actually prefer Arcanine here. Incineroar is a good Pokemon normally because it's so good into the field. But if you know that you're going up against it, it's actually somewhat easy to counter. Covert Cloak stops Fake Out, and Clear Amulet stops both Intimidate Intimidate, and Parting Shot. The thing that makes Incineroar so good is the fact that it's such a good support Pokemon. Unfortunately, supporting is really what Incineroar excels at. If you try to get it to do something else, you're not making use of what makes it strong in the first place. But Arcanine is another story. It's not as good at supporting a team as Incineroar is, but where it shines is its flexibility. Arcanine is faster than Incineroar by a good margin, which means that it makes far better use of moves like Snarl and Will-O-Wisp, which reduce damage and are more valuable if you hit the opponent before they attack. The higher speed also opens up sets like Choice Band and Choice Specs, allowing it to work as a damage option as well, rather than just as support. There's even more that Arcanine can do, but I don't want to give away all my tricks just yet. For now, let's move on to our next pick from Rosemary. She grabs Garchomp, whose fast ground type damage is going to be nearly impossible to get elsewhere. Next is Shady, who grabs the other Ursaluna, which just leaves Uzi. Uzi gets to take 2 Pokemon, and he's going for one thing above all else: speed. With Dragapult and then Whimsicott, Uzi's making it nearly impossible to outspeed him. Rosemary grabs Tyranitar, a great compliment for Garchomp, and Shady grabs a DD female, getting Trick Room, Psychic Terrain, and Follow Me all in one. Now it's my turn again, and I'm back in the driver's seat. Before I drafted Arcanine, I sat down and I built out an entirely new draft plan, complete with backup picks if certain Pokemon get taken. A huge thank you to my friend Zane, who helped me with this plan, and also who actually writes for this channel sometimes. He edited this script. Thank you, Zane. I didn't put this in the script though, so he didn't see it. It's a surprise. He'll see it later. Ooh. Anyway, now that I've secured Arcanine, my goal is to draft the Pokemon that I want that I don't have a backup pick for. And first is one clear option. For my second pick, I'm drafting Glimmora. Glimmora might look a little strange because it overlaps with Arcanine's water and ground weaknesses. However, Glimmora I expect to be a backbone of this team. With Meteor Beam, it can do overwhelming damage. It has good coverage moves like Earth Power, Energy Ball, and Dazzling Gleam, and it can even play a more defensive role, spreading poison with its signature ability, Toxic Debris, and its signature move, Mortal Spin. It's flexible, it's threatening, and it's unique, so it's my second pick here. By the time it's my turn again, the teams are starting to take shape. Mount grabs Torkoal, then Oranguru on his next turn, building towards a Trick Room team. Aaron takes Dondozo, then Pommet, laying claim to the Dondozo-Tatsugiri combo and grabbing Pommet for potential Revival Blessing. James takes Alolan Ninetales and Kilowattrel, getting both weather and speed control. And Joey takes Meowstic Male and Poltegeist. Poltegeist being Baby Sinistcha, the pre-evolved version, which is a 3-point Pokemon when everybody else is still drafting Pokemon in the double digits. But despite Poltegeist being so cheap, it's actually one of the Pokemon that I least wanted to see picked. Poltegeist being gone means I need to change plans. Not because I wanted Poltegeist, but because it was the backup for a Pokemon that I do want very much. A Pokemon I feel is incredibly undervalued. A Pokemon I expect will be a secret MVP, the glue that holds my team together. A Pokemon that survived from my original draft plan centered around Ursaluna Blood Moon. Pokemon I knew I wanted as soon as I realized what it could do, no matter what the rest of my draft looked like. A Pokemon that experienced fans may have forgotten about, and newer fans may have never known existed in the first place. A Pokemon that I feel is one of the best picks on the entire board. For my third pick, for 3 points, I'm drafting Trevenant. For the same price as Dipplin, Veluza, or Minior, I've grabbed a Pokemon that can take over games. A Pokemon that can keep itself alive indefinitely, that should be able to come no matter what the opponent has. I told you that draft is in some ways about finding diamonds in the rough, and from the beginning, Trevenant has been looking mighty shiny. Originally, my plan was actually to draft Trevenant as third pick, because it's just so good for the cost. But when I told Zane about this, he was like, dude, you can't pick a 3-point Pokemon third. Everyone else is going to be taking expensive Pokemon still. It especially didn't make sense to take Trevenant early because if it did end up getting drafted, I could always take Poltegeist, who shares the typing and the exact same cost. But Poltegeist is gone now, which means I no longer have a backup. And so I actually feel pretty good about picking Trevenant third. And I've alluded to it so far, but the reason why Trevenant is so important is not only because I think it's an excellent Pokemon, but because it only costs 3 points. This 3-point price tag is crucial to making my plans for this draft work. Rather than spreading my picks out evenly across the different tiers, I'm instead focus firing. My plan is to get a ton of good Pokemon in the 11 to 16 point range, basically ignore the middle tiers altogether, and then look to get value out of the super cheap Pokemon in the 1, 2, and 3 cost price buckets. This is my strategy, and so far, everything is going according to plan. Rosemary drafts Clefable and then Fletchinder, giving her Redirection and Tailwind to support her Sand duo. Shady grabs Hisuian Braviary and Scrafty. Hisuian Braviary is a really scary Pokemon in this format. When I play him, I'll need to really watch out for the Tailwind and Expanding Force threat. Uzi grabs Gliscor and Araquanid, spreading out the balance of his speed stats and grabbing 4 new types for his team. And now it's time for my 4th pick. For 11 points, I'm drafting Noivern. Noivern isn't commonly considered to be a very good Pokemon, but in Draft League, it's a whole different beast. It'll be easier to understand if I show you rather than tell you though, so you'll have to wait for the week 1 match to see why. Mount grabs Illumise for 14 points, giving him Tailwind and other prankster supporting moves. But now he has 4 very expensive Pokemon, and so grabs Scraggy for a great budget 1-point pick. Joey takes Greninja and Basculegion. If we doubted that Joey was going to be drafting Rain for our Chaladon before, that double water and Basculegion pick makes it very clear now. It's a team with some scary threats. Getting both Basculegion and our Chaladon is ridiculous. James takes Crocodile, giving him Intimidate and access to Beat Up to boost Annihilate, as well as Cinderace for a fast physical attacker, which only leaves Aaron, who, unfortunately for me, snipes one of the Pokemon that I wanted. Aaron takes Galarian Weezing and Slacking. I personally wasn't interested in Weezing, but I did have big plans for Slacking. Fortunately, I did intend to take Slacking last because I didn't think anyone else would want it, and I would not say that it was a crucial part of my strategy more than it was a cool Pokemon, which was a good price point. My plan had been to take Alolan Persian and Slacking for a total of 15 points later down the line, but now I realize that none of the other 6-point Pokemon really appeal to me, so maybe I do some reevaluating of my strategy. For now though, it's time to grab my next Pokemon, and it's one that I was really hoping to get. A Psychic type introduced in Generation 9, and my 5th pick of the draft, Espathra. Espathra is far more flexible than people realize. It never really took off in VGC, but in draft, I can use its ridiculous move pool to do some pretty nasty things. I don't want to spoil all the surprises that I have planned for you, but I will give you one little tidbit that I can't use anymore. Part of the reason that I wanted Slacking in the first place was so that I could use Skill Swap from Espathra onto it. This would not only take away Truant from Slacking, it would also give it Speed Boost. Imagine a Slacking that gets faster every turn instead of not being able to move for half of them. You could then use Skill Swap to pass Truant to your opponent. I've got a lot of cool things planned for Espathra, but first, I need to see what gets drafted next. Rosemary takes Gyarados, who has incredible synergy with Garchomp and Tyranitar, and then Scyther, a good pick for the 3-point price tag. Shady grabs Orthworm, who has great synergy with his Ursaluna, as well as Drifblim, who opens up another Tailwind mode, as well as Baton Pass Shenanigans, thanks to its good synergy with Indeedee. Uzi, last to go, grabs one of the scariest Pokemon, the Suian Typhlosion. Inside Tailwind, this Pokemon is a menace, and especially if his Whimsicott uses Sunny Day. To make sure that he has counterplayed a Trick Room, he also grabs Glade, who can work in any form of speed control. Now it's my turn to pick again, and I realized something. Earlier, I told you that I found 2 Pokemon that could combine to fill Ursaluna Blood Moon's role. Well, those 2 Pokemon haven't been drafted yet, and looking around, they don't really fit anyone else's team. I've got the most points left out of anybody at this point, and everyone else is thinking about budget picks. And so, I can afford to play a little bit greedy, saving my most expensive picks for later down the line. But in order to get all 3 remaining expensive Pokemon that I want, I'm going to have to draft 2 very cheap Pokemon. Specifically, I need to draft a 2-point Pokemon and a 1-point Pokemon. Fortunately, there is a 2-point Pokemon that gives me something that I want very badly: Redirection. It's not the better version, which would be Follow Me, but Rage Powder is totally fine, because for just 2 points, my 6th pick in the draft is Venonat. This may seem like a joke, but I am dead serious about this little bug. When I was planning my draft, I knew that I wanted some form of redirection, and for a while I was looking at the 11-point Pokemon Electivire because it can learn Follow Me. Then I realized that Eviolite Venonat is actually bulkier. Venonat can do more than just redirect though, as it also gets the Compound Eyes ability, which increases the accuracy of its moves, and it learns the normally inaccurate Sleep Powder. Combining Compound Eyes with Sleep Powder turns the accuracy from 75% to near perfect. It's a dangerous Pokemon that you can't afford to ignore, and it is a total steal for just 2 points. Electivire, funnily enough, goes next to Mount, who also grabs Blaziken for a fast fire type that he can use to take advantage of Torkoal's Sun. Aaron grabs our second 1-pointer of the draft. But out of everything in the tier, it's the one that I think is by far the best, Yanma. He also picks up Murkrow, maybe for Tailwind, maybe just to deny it from somebody else, preventing them from hazing away his Dondozo. Joey takes Riolu for a 4-point prankster Pokemon, as well as Rhyperior to provide an electric immunity and a Trick Room attacker. And James takes Blastoise and Hydrapple, completing his Fire, Water, Grass core. Now I'm up again, and I only have 4 Pokemon left. I'm confident I can save 2 of my expensive picks until the very end, because nobody else is going to want them. So before before then, I have 2 other Pokemon to get. This was originally the Alolan Persian and Slacking slots, but with Slacking gone, I've got a new plan. Rather than a 6-point Pokemon and a 9-point Pokemon, I'm instead gonna get the most value that I can, with a 14-pointer and a 1-pointer. And now it's time to get the first half of the Ursaluna replacement duo. I'm looking for a Pokemon that fills many of the similar roles. A ground-type Pokemon with a spread move that hits hard and works inside of Tailwind. And the most obvious answer is Excadrill, but there's another Pokemon that I personally like more. It's time to finally take one of those expensive Pokemon that I've been saving up for. For 14 points, my 7th pick is Mamoswine. I actually recently used Mamoswine, although if I've done my schedule correctly, that video won't be out for another 2 weeks, but I was really impressed by it. And I also think that it fits my team better here than Excadrill, because I think it does a better job of filling the gap left by Ursaluna Blood Moon. It has 2 great abilities. Oblivious blocks opposing Intimidate, but I can also use Thick Fat, which will give Mamoswine some extra resistances if an opponent's team doesn't have Intimidate. It can be used with both offensive and defensive items. It's a strong Pokemon at the exact speed tier that I was looking for, and I think it'll round out my offense nicely. Rosemary gets Rotom Mow and Hitmontop. 2 great picks for 10 points apiece. She's building one hell of a sand team. Shady grabs the budget picks of Fungus and Porygon 1, getting a 2-point redirector of his own and another Trick Room setter. Uzi needs to budget now, with so many expensive Pokemon already on his roster, and so he grabs the Galarian duo of Berserker and Toxtricity, who both can work inside of Tailwind. Now it's time for my 8th pick, and I think it's time for my 1-pointer. Out of all the Pokemon on this team, this is the one that I'm the least confident in. I'm really not sure how good it'll be, but it's the best 1-pointer for my team, so I'm gonna go for it. For my 8th pick, I'll be grabbing Dedenne. Dedenne does have some stuff going for it, but I also don't know how often I'm gonna bring it to a battle. That being said, it does give me an electric type, and it has some good moves like Nuzzle, Super Fang, Charm, Eerie Impulse, and Endeavor, so I figure that it's theoretically possible that it could come to certain matchups. Mount grabs Copperaja and Vileplume, getting another Trick Room attacker and a Chlorophyll Pokemon. Aaron, having used a ton of points and still needing to budget for Tatsugiri, takes Dugtrio and Toadschool. Joey takes Alomalama and Pelipper. Though he did first draft Zebstrika, I lied and said that I was going to take Pelipper as my next pick, and then he panicked and he changed it. So yeah, anyway, I think we know what his last pick is.
Well, I was basically terrified. I was actually terrified.
I didn't mean to take him, but I was like, oh, freak him out. But then I didn't know you could change. So then all of a sudden Pelipper got drafted, and I was like, oh man.
What about Pelipper? No.
And James takes the budget picks of Furret for redirection and Duosion to set Trick Room. Now it's time for my penultimate pick, and it's time for the other half of the Ursaluna replacement duo, and the Pokemon that is, in my opinion, able to most closely resemble it. I've saved it till now because I felt confident that it was safe, but despite how late it's gone in the draft, I am very happy to have it on my team. A water-type Pokemon, a 16-point threat, and an attacker that works in both Trick Room and Tailwind. For my 9th pick, I'm taking Primarina. Like Ursaluna, Primarina gets access to the powerful spread move Hyper Voice, which turns into a water-type attack thanks to its Liquid Voice ability. It also has a great secondary typing in Fairy, making it super difficult to switch into. It can set up with Calm Mind, it can run defensive items like Assault Vest, Citrus Berry, and Leftovers, it can go on the offense with Life Orb or Choice Specs, and it even sits at a similar speed to Ursaluna Blood Moon, working both inside of Tailwind and Trick Room. There's a lot that you can do with Primarina, but I'll give you just one idea that I've been cooking up. Originally, I planned to use this with the bear, but it works just as well on Primarina. Espathra learns Calm Mind, and it also learns Baton Pass. If I set it up properly, I can Baton Pass speed, special attack, and special defense boost to Primarina, who can then use its spread water type move Hyper Voice to tear through teams. Primarina completes my Fire, Water, Grass core, and it gives me a real Trick Room attacker to pair with Trevenant, something that I was missing before. We're at the end of the draft now. By the time it's my turn again, 3 people have all 10 of their Pokemon. Rosemary finishes up with Houndstone and Alchemy. Shady takes Houndoom and Amarouge. And Uzi takes Skiploom and my friend Malamar. And so it's time for my 10th and final pick, the last Pokemon I'll have on my roster. I'm going with Hariyama. Hariyama, similar to Primarina, works inside both Tailwind and Trick Room, and it can help set both up thanks to its access to Fake Out. It's a terrifying sweeper with Flame Orb and the Guts ability, but it can also be quite tanky with Assault Vest and the Thick Fat ability. It has a great move pool, it's got good stats, and it gives me the fighting type that my team was lacking before. I saved it till my last pick for 2 reasons. First, by the time I was ready to pick it, it very clearly didn't fit on anybody else's team. Second, even if it did did get drafted, there was another Flame Orb Guts fighting type at the exact same price point of Conkeldurr. If Hariyama got taken, I could always take Conk, but Hariyama was always my preference thanks to its access to Fake Out. But even though my team is done, there's still 4 more players who need to finish their teams. Mount wraps up with Spupa, Aaron finally takes Tatsugiri, Joey does in fact grab Zebstrika, and James takes Revavroom. And with that, every single team is complete. There's 24 hours that players get to make changes from the undrafted Pokemon left. Mount drops Spupa, Electivire, and Vileplume for Sentret, Raichu, and Exeggutor, while Shady drops Porygon 1 for Stantler. And now the teams are finalized for week number 1. And with the teams complete, it becomes most obvious how different Draft League is by looking at some of the undrafted Pokemon. Dragonite, one of the most dangerous Pokemon, currently dominating tournaments, left behind. Amoonguss, Incineroar, Kingambit, Rillaboom, and Porygon 2 all deemed not worth it despite not being in the most expensive tier. Sneasler, Maushold, and Sinistcha unwanted at 18 points. Sinistcha's pre-evolution Poltergeist got picked up, but Big Bro was deemed too expensive by the field. It does feel a little bit wrong, but when every point matters, some Pokemon just aren't worth the cost. This tournament will take place over 7 weeks, where every coach will face off against every other coach during that time. At the end, the 4 best performing coaches will move on to a final single elimination bracket, where only one will be left standing. Before I can think about the semifinals though, I've got a much more pressing obstacle in front of me. My week 1 opponent is none other than the king of draft himself, Joey Pokeaim MD. Joey's one of the scariest opponents in the entire tournament, not only because of his legacy and his reputation and his super strong jaw, but also because of his team. He's got some monstrous threats, alright? Pelipper, Basculegion, and Archaludon have been dominating tournaments since the format began, and the fact that he was able to draft all 3 of them is just unbelievable. Joey's rain offense means I've got to make some tough choices as to which Pokemon I'm leaving on the bench for week 1. I have 3 expensive Pokemon that I spent a ton of points on that are all weak to water. After a ton of prep, I have to make a call. The only one of the 3 that I can afford to bring here is Glimmora. The other 2 are getting left behind. Joining them on the bench this week are Hariyama and Dedenne. I've got nearly half of the points I spent in the draft not present in this battle. But this is one of the quirks of Draft League. Winning isn't about bringing the strongest Pokemon generally, it's about bringing the strongest Pokemon for your opponent. This week, I'm betting on some of my more budget picks, but I did pick them for a reason. And as Joey and I get set up, I remind myself of which Pokemon I think he's gonna bring. Joey's team is interesting. The Pokemon that I expect to see are Pelipper, Basculegion, Archaludon, Meowstic, Sinistcha, and like Greninja. Yeah, those are the 6 that I expect. The Pokemon that I would least like to see is Meowstic. As the battle begins, I get confirmation. This is exactly what I expected, but no Greninja, so my Yachi Berry is kind of useless. So now to explain my strategy. My team this week has 3 distinct modes that I've built out with specific combos in mind. First, there's the Tail Room mode, where I use my Noivern to set up Tailwind for Glimmora, and then let Primarina take advantage of whatever turns it has when it comes in. Then I can use Trevenant to set Trick Room up as Tailwind ends, maintaining my speed advantage. Second is my Setup Espathra mode, which aims to set up Calm Minds and Speed Boost by using Venonat to support, then to use Psych Up with Primarina to copy those stat boosts. Lastly, there's the hard Trick Room mode, where I use Venonat to try and set up Trick Room, and then try and sweep before the dimensions go back to normal. My plan for this match is to start with my weakest mode first. And this probably seems strange, but let me explain. Noivern Glimmora is the mode that I like the least if Joey leads with Meowstic. And I think game 1 is the game that Joey is the least likely to lead with Meowstic. My gut is that to start the set, he's gonna go with his Rain mode. And there's a secondary benefit to this mode, which is that I get to lead with Noivern. The battle begins and my instinct was right on the money. Joey is opened up with Pelipper and Basculegion. Before the turn 1 even starts though, Noivern's ability activates and gives me some crucial information. It is Sash Pelipper, which is what we expected, and Clear Amulet Basculegion. Remember that in this tournament, we aren't given any information about the moves, abilities, and items that our opponents have selected before the match. The only thing that we are told is the Terra types of our opponent's Pokemon. Frisk is a useless ability in the open team sheet format, as you already know your opponent's held items, but in Draft League, it is a godsend. For example, in this battle, I now know that I can't KO Pelipper in 1 hit, and that the Basculegion doesn't have an item that boosts its damage. I drafted Noivern so early in part to get access to a great Frisk user, but knowing the items is not enough to win this battle. The issue with Sash Pelipper is that I can't both get rid of it and use Noivern to get some control over the battle in the same turn. So rather than making a hard read and doubling Pelipper when it could protect, I decide to split the difference and play it a little safer. Basculesian goes first and attacks with Ice Fang, a move that it would never run normally except to clear Noivern. However, I've got the Yachi Berry to make sure that I survive the random ice moves I was confident that Joey would run. Now, Noivern gets control of the weather with Sunny Day as Glimmora takes Pelipper down to its Focus Sash. But rather than attacking, Pelipper sets up Tailwind. Joey switches Pelipper out into our Chaladon, but he doesn't go for another Ice Fang.
They go for Wave Crash actually, so they're gonna do good damage here. 49 down to 150, or 159 down to 49, I should say. Toxic Debris goes active.
I KO Basculesian in exchange, but in doing so, I find myself in a world of trouble. I've brought Glimmora to this battle despite its water weakness because I'm holding the Focus Sash item. But by going for Wave Crash, Joey has broken it. Because I went for Sunny Day instead of Tailwind, both my Pokemon are slower than both of his, and there's nothing that I can do to save them.
I think I might have made a mistake here, because now Pelipper gets to come back in. I needed to Tailwind there actually in hindsight.
I let Noivern go down to get my Trevenant in undamaged. Trevenant is my ace in the hole. With its immense bulk, it excels at setting up Trick Room. And if I can twist the dimensions, I can turn this game around. But the question is, will Joey double into my tree, KOing it before I can move? Pelipper moves first, but it KOs Glimmora, and there is no way that our Chaladon can knock out my full HP Trevenant. But then I realize he's not trying to KO it.
Oh, it's Dragon Tail. It's roaring me.
Dragon Tail forces the target to switch, and it always goes before Trick Room. Trevenant is forced out before it can act, and Primarina is sent out in its stead with the dimensions strictly normal. Now things are looking bleak, and I'll probably lose unless Joey makes a major mistake. But he doesn't, going for Terra Stellar on his Pelipper and doubling my Trevenant for the KO. Down 1 against 3, I lose game 1.
So that's not good. Okay, I got kind of blown up. Don't love that for me.
In game 2, one thing is clear. Noivern is not gonna cut it. I'm switching modes, and I decide to go to the one that doesn't rely on Trick Room at all, using the 2 Pokemon that I left behind in game 1. In the second game of the set, with my back against the wall, I'm betting on Espathra and Venonat. And as the game begins, I think that I've made the right call.
Arch Meowstic. Okay, cool. So I got the leads right. I had a feeling he was going to pivot.
And since I'm not in any danger, it's time to go for the gold with my secondary strategy. Calm Mind Espathra. Joey's team is overwhelmingly comprised of special attackers, with the main exception being his Basculesian. However, after 2 speed boosts and just 1 Calm Mind, Espathra can both outspeed and one-hit KO the fish with Energy Ball. Venonat can protect my Espathra with Rage Powder and disrupt Joey's team with Sleep Powder. But on turn 1, it won't get to move. Joey stops it with Fake Out as I Calm Mind and shrug off a Flash Cannon. But my good position suddenly falls apart, as Joey reveals that he's shown more respect to Venonat than any prior trainer in history. Our Chaladon terastallizes to grass, making itself immune to Sleep Powder and Rage Powder. And after setting up Light Screen, Meowstic is completely unaffected by Sleep Powder as well, because it's holding Safety Goggles, an item Joey is dedicated just in case I brought Venonat. And in doing so, he's rendered my little bug completely useless.
That's not good. That's really bad. Okay, so he's found a way to totally invalidate my Venonat.
Things just keep getting worse, as my Lumina Crash does nothing to what must be an Assault Vest Chaladon inside of Light Screen. Meowstic does half to Venonat, while I'm forced to click Struggle Bug for no damage despite being super effective against both my opponent's Pokemon. As our Chaladon fires back with that same pesky Dragon Tail that got me in game 1, forcing Espathra to switch to Glimmora and giving up all its stat boosts in the process. Psych Up is off the table. I've lost a ton of health on my leads and I've given up my stat boosts. In other words, my entire strategy has been completely nullified. The only way to get back into this game is with a hard read.
I need to make a call this turn, I think. I think Venonat kind of doesn't have anything to do if it's not clicking Sleep Powder, so I'm just gonna call the switch out, okay? Here's Pelly, okay, so this is first turn of Rain. Because of the Struggle Bug, I should take another Psyshock. Okay, he goes for it into Glimmora. Good job, Glimmora. This is a super accurate. It's like 97% accurate, so it should connect. There we go. Good job, Venonat. Okay.
With Venonat putting Pelipper to sleep, I am still in this. I need to take advantage of these few turns where I'm fighting a 2 against 1 while Pelipper takes a nap. So I switch Venonat out back into Espathra. But don't let the fact that it's not in the field anymore make you think that Venonat's not still pulling its weight. Meowstic goes for Psyshock, but it does surprisingly little to Glimmora despite being super effective. And the reason why is because 2 turns ago, Venonat's Struggle Bug dropped Meowstic to -1 special attack, which is the exact reduction to make sure that my Glimmora can survive another hit, as it brings Pelipper down to Focus Sash. But I am still so far behind, and I'm losing the damage race. I could KO Pelipper this turn, but then what? Our Chaladon comes back in with light screen active, or even worse, Basculesian hits the field. All the while, Meowstic is doing even more damage to Glimmora. If I take a KO this turn, it's just going to give Joey momentum. The same type of momentum I gave him in game 1 that caused me to lose. But what's the other option?
Do I ever go after this Meowstic this turn and pray for a 2-turn sleep? I'm going to pray for a 2-turn sleep.
It is a 2/3 chance in my favor. Meowstic is the first to move, but thanks to Venonat's Struggle Bug, Glimmora hangs on, letting me go for Lumina Crash and then Power Gem into Meowstic, who also survives thanks to the light screen. Now it's all down to the bird, who sleeps. And now, finally, things are starting to turn around. Joey sets up a second light screen, but I KO both of his Pokemon, putting me in the lead 4-2. But I am not out of the woods yet.
I've gotten 2 kills, but the problem is that my Pokemon are also low, and my closer is Primarina, who actually isn't super good here, like without a speed boost or something.
Joey goes back into our Chaladon and reveals that his final Pokemon is...
Oh, it's Poltergeist. Oh, that's not what I was expecting. Okay, hold on a second. It's Grass Terra or Chaladon. I think I'm gonna lose this because... Wait, hang on, let's think this through.
The issue is that it's actually really hard for me to get at this Assault Vest Archaladon, but I do have an advantage on this turn only, while I still have the speed advantage. This is the turn that I have to make count. Initially, I think that I can't use my Terra this turn because I need to save it for Primarina in order to survive an Electro Shot. But then I realize...
Actually, no, the rain is ending, so I actually shouldn't use it on Primarina. So I'm gonna go Lumina Crash and Terra Stellar Power Gem here, because I don't think this thing can protect itself. This might not work, but the thing is that if I don't do something, then I am gonna lose. Now, Lumina Crash Stellar Terra Power Gem is my only chance here, I think. Okay, they don't protect. Ooh, I'm not gonna do enough damage. There's no way. There's actually no way. I did nothing. Too bad I don't have Sludge Bomb. If I had Sludge Bomb, I'd be chilling. Okay, this probably won't kill. Oh, it's so close.
Our Chaladon KOs Glimmora, but what is Poltergeist going for?
If it's Trick Room, then Venonat gets to come in, but I don't think it's Trick Room. Do they have? Oh, it's Trick Room.
Trick Room means that my Espathra is dead in the water, but that's not the Pokemon I need right now. This Archaladon only has 1 HP left, and it's a Grass type, which means it's time for Venonat to make its triumphant return. Poltergeist barely keeps Archaladon alive with Life Dew, letting it survive the Struggle Bug.
It doesn't do any damage.
But Archaladon is forced to KO Espathra, giving me a free switch into Primarina. With Trick Room active and Archaladon back at neutral special attack, there's no way for Joey to stop my spread moves of Struggle Bug and Dazzling Gleam, and I win game 2. But despite the win,
I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed.
Here's the thing about Draft League. Regular viewers of my channel know that I'm kind of always freaking out about the worst case scenario. I'll be up 4 Pokemon against one of my opponents, and I'll still be explaining how I can lose.
I think I actually lose. I think I've seen through the ways that this plays out, and I'm pretty sure I lose this actually.
And the reason for this is not that I'm like, joking around. It's that I'm always acutely aware of the options that my opponent can take to still win the game. I never consider a game to be over until I see that final victory or defeat screen. But in Draft League, the worst case is the scenario, because your opponent has specifically built their team to counter yours. Safety Goggles Meowstic, Ice Fang Basculesian, and Dragon Tail Archaladon have already caused me major issues. And who knows what other tech Joey has been saving for game 3.
I need to take a breath because I am freaking out.
And I need to decide which mode I want to use in this final game. Definitely not Noivern, but what about the one that I just used to win?
With Dragon Tail and Grass Terra, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go for... I don't know if I'm going to be able to go for an Espathra-centric strategy again.
If it's not Espathra and it's not Noivern, then my only choice is my third and final mode, my hard Trick Room Gambit. This mode features Venonat and Trevenant in the lead. Here, Joey could stop Trick Room with Archaladon, but I don't really mind playing it slow with Struggle Bug and Knockoff, gradually wearing away at his Pokemon, and then going for a Trick Room later in the match.
And the core idea is that Venonat is good and Primarina is really scary. So I think I'm going to go with it.
With my mode locked in, it is time for the final game of the set.
He could bring Rhyperior here, but I stopped going for a Trick Room-centric strategy, so it seems likely that he won't expect me to go for, a super hard Trick Room strategy, especially after Dragon Tail stopped Trevenant in game 1. Why do I even speak? Okay, cool.
Rhyperior is the only Pokemon that Joey hasn't brought to the set yet, meaning it is the only Pokemon that I have 0 information on. One thing is clear though, I do not want to set up Trick Room in front of this thing.
I don't have any way of hitting this thing once it tears to grass.
Joey tears Rhyperior to grass. I protect Venonat as Joey sets up Light Screen, and Knockoff does a ton to Meowstic. Rhyperior is up last.
Oh, it's slower than Tree. Okay, so this is min speed. That's Choice Band. Okay, Choice Band or Rhyperior. So it doesn't have oh, it's Life Orb. Never mind. Okay. Harvest, 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 harvest. Ah, where's my harvest? Hello?
Harvest gives Trevenant a 50% chance of finding another berry at the end of every turn. The bad news is that I didn't get it here. The good news is it doesn't matter because Trevenant is dying this turn. That's not good news. Meowstic deals half to Venonat with Psyshock, but because Trevenant removed the safety goggles, Sleep Powder puts it to sleep. Trevenant takes away Rhyperior's Life Orb with Knockoff, but it doesn't help because
they Rock Wrecker me. I'm dead.
However, Rock Wrecker is like Hyper Beam. It has a recharge turn after using it. Meowstic, having just gone to sleep, also can't attack this turn. So even though I have lost a Pokemon and a half, I can get back into the game this turn. I send out my Primarina, but to my surprise, Joey switches Meowstic out.
Bro, it's Poltergeist. Oh.
Healing Rhyperior. My Moonblast does half of Rhyperior's HP, but I just didn't get enough value this turn. Because now Rhyperior can attack again. Once again, in order to stay in the game, I need to call this turn right.
Like, there's no way he intends to stay in with Rhyperior here, right? And attack. So I think maybe I need to make a prediction. Because he knows I have Gleam, unless he thinks he takes it, but I don't think he'll take it. Because the thing is, I don't necessarily want to give him a free switch in. Terrafairy Moonblast, I think. I go for it. Okay, he stayed in. That's not good. That's not good. Uh-oh. Like, surely it's Protect, right? Surely it's Protect. Okay. I'm still in some pretty big trouble, though. Unless this does, like, a ton of damage, but I don't think it will. If I gleamed last turn.
Trick Room goes up, and things look dire. Rhyperior can do so much damage, and because of the light screen, I probably can't KO it in exchange. But I feel like I have no choice. I have to go for it. I protect Venonat, taking a Rock Slide with Primarina.
Gonna go for Life Dew, and then I'm not gonna get the KO, and then I'm just dead.
Rhyperior just barely survives the Moonblast.
His spreads are out of this world. I cannot believe that. Okay.
If I can just get through this low HP Rhyperior, I might still be able to win. The easiest way to do that is to dodge one Rock Slide.
He misses? Preen! Yeah, baby! Wait, what's his, oh, I'm dead.
Primarina tanks the foul play and picks up a double KO with Dazzling Gleam, leaving the Pokemon count at 2 apiece. But Joey hasn't revealed his final Pokemon yet.
If it's Basculegion, I think that's the bad case scenario. Foul play. Oh, it's Basculegion. You gotta be kidding me. What have I done to deserve this? Okay. Because basically the problem is that Aqua Jet might KO.
But here's the thing. This battle isn't technically a 2 against 2. See, even though Venonat has been knocked out, it left behind one final gift in the form of a sleeping Meowstic. Without the sleep, Fake Out could potentially swing this fight. But this turn and this turn only, Meowstic cannot attack. On this turn, it is a 2 against 1. And the Trick Room that Joey set up on this turn alone works in my favor. Primarina's Dazzling Gleam KOs Meowstic and does half to Basculegion. Joey fires off a Last Respects at maximum power in return.
Okay, Primarina goes down, but it's okay. It's done more than enough. This Primarina actually popped off. And then, last but not least, Energy Ball that should close it out. Oh gosh, okay. Alrighty, well that was certainly a way to return to Draft League.
Somehow, despite constantly running into the traps that Joey set up in team building, my team of scrappy upstarts have persevered. They might not have the usage, they might not have the metagame relevancy, but you know what they do have? The heart, the guts, the charisma, the gusto, and a little bit of luck, which, I mean, doesn't hurt either. And so, the DC Parish claim victory over the LA Wakers in week 1 of the Wolfey Draft League. Oh, as an aside, if you are interested in watching the unedited version of these battles in full, you can find them all uploaded on my second channel, Bonus Wolf. Just be aware that, I mean, if you go watch them now, you'll run into spoilers for the rest of the week, so, you know, keep that in mind. You can also watch the perspective of any of the other players in this league, as they've all uploaded on their own individual channels as well. So if you want to see their games against the other coaches, not just their games against me, make sure you check them out. If you need help finding their channels, they're showcased here in this little box on screen. We'll show them at the beginning of every week. Even though this was one of the most intense sets that I've ever played in Draft League, it was also only week 1, and this tournament is far from over. Unfortunately, things are not getting any easier, because in week 2, our opponent is none other than 2 times world semifinalist James Beck. James is not only an incredible VGC player, he's also a Draft League fiend. Something immediately obvious when you look at the Pokemon that he's picked. With his first pick overall in the draft, he selected Annihilate. This Pokemon is already tough to deal with when you can use any legal Pokemon that you want. Having to do it without a dedicated counter is no small feat. What makes Annihilate so scary is not only its impressive stats and diverse move pool, but also its signature move Rage Fist, which gets stronger every time it gets hit. This means I can't chip away at it over time without powering it up, but it also means if James brings his Crocodile, he can use the move Beat Up to stack Rage Fist himself. He also has Alolan Ninetales, who offers control of the weather, plus a host of annoying moves it can use to disrupt my team or power up James's. His remaining mid-cost Pokemon aren't as common in the official metagame, but they are quite scary here. I'm sure that James is going to bring Kilowattrel, because it's a Tailwind setter that is just barely faster than my Noivern. I also expect Blastoise, who can serve as either a bulky supporter with Fake Out, Icy Wind, and Yawn, or a setup sweeper with Shell Smash and Water Spout. Cinderace is a fast fire attacker, while Hydrapple is a grass and dragon type with superb stats and a couple interesting abilities. I don't expect James to bring many of his cheaper picks in Furret or Duosion. However, there is one budget Pokemon I'm terrified of. A Pokemon that is never used, but matches up very well into my specific team, Revavroom. It's a Steel and Poison type, and it is a huge pain for me to break through. But to understand why, we need to talk about which Pokemon I'm bringing and which I'm leaving behind. Dedenne is once again left on the bench, but shockingly, the only other Pokemon returning to the bench is Arcanine, my first pick overall. And I know what you're thinking, Wolf, how could you leave your first pick behind 2 weeks in a row? But here's the thing. James's Annihilate has Defiant, and his Kilowattrel has Competitive, which are two abilities that power up your Pokemon if any of their stats are dropped. Arcanine is too much of a risk to bring to this battle if I use Intimidate, and if I don't use Intimidate, it just doesn't have enough to do. So the only option is to leave it behind. Joining Arcanine and Dedenne on the bench are Trevenant and Venonat. Trevenant is actually weak to like every single one of James's high cost Pokemon, and while I do think that Venonat could be strong here, I'm just a little bit worried about like random Terra Grass, Safety Goggles, and Taunt after Joey's prep last week. Moreover, there are 6 Pokemon that I actually want here. Noivern, Mamoswine, Primarina, Espathra, Hariyama, and Glamora. This week, I feel way more comfortable than I did against Joey. I think I'm adjusting back to the flow of Draft League, but that's not the only thing working in my favor here. One of the cool things about Draft League is that since you use the same Pokemon for the entire league, you become better and better at bringing out their potential and at finding their strong sets quickly. This week, I'm bringing some really unconventional sets. And the biggest question is, will they actually work? Or have I cooked too hard and caused a catastrophe in the kitchen? As James and I get connected, I take a look at which 6 Pokemon he's brought. Here's the exact Pokemon that I expected, which is Annihilate, Alolan Ninetales, Kilowattrel, Crocodile, Blastoise, and, unfortunately, Revavroom. Here's the problem with Revavroom. Noivern can't touch it. Glamora can't touch it. Espathra can't get rid of it quickly. It hits Mamoswine, Glamora, and Primarina for super effective damage, and it outspeeds every single one of my Pokemon except for Noivern. If I'm not careful, I will get run over.
I hate Revavroom.
Once again, I have 3 modes planned against James's team. And once again, the first one features Noivern and its handy little Frisk ability. I think in game 1, I just have to stick with my game plan of 1-2 Espathra Prim, I think. The battle begins, and it's my Noivern and Mamoswine against James's Annihilate and Alolan Ninetales. Frisk tells me what I need to know. It's not Scarf and the Ninetales, Sash Ninetales. Okay, cool. And Leftovers 8. I've got a safe play here. I protect my Noivern. If Frisk hadn't revealed the Focus Sash, I'd have gone for Tailwind here and taken a ton of damage. But now I know that I can't KO Ninetales in one shot. And you're probably thinking, Wolf, how could you leave your Mamoswine vulnerable in front of a fighting type? But you see, dear viewer, after taking an Icy Wind, James in fact does launch the fighting type move Drain Punch into my Mamoswine and activates my Chople Berry, cutting the damage in half. Oh, he crit me. Oh man. But the crit still isn't enough. And now it's Mamoswine's turn. See, my Mamoswine is carrying a move just for this Ninetales, Heavy Slam. You would never use it normally, but here it brings Ninetales down to its Focus Sash, leaving it with only 1 HP, which means my Ice Shard can pick up the KO before Ninetales can attack again. Noivern sets up Tailwind, and although Annihilate does KO my Mamoswine, that means I get to bring in my Primarina safely with Tailwind already set up. James sends out Kilowattrel. Now, without any speed investment, Primarina is naturally 34 points slower than Kilowattrel, even with Tailwind active. If my Primarina is slower, it'll have to take a super effective electric move, or actually worse here, James can set up a Tailwind of his own. But my Primarina isn't slower. I've invested a ton of points into its speed, and because I know that the Ninetales was holding the Focus Sash, that means that this Kilowattrel isn't. Annihilate terrestrializes to Ice, turning off his weaknesses to Flying and Fairy as it takes an Air Slash.
I can get the flinch is the thing. Air Slash is kind of broken. Okay, it does nothing. Primarina moves next. Outspeeds Kilowattrel and KOs it in one shot with Life Orb Moonblast before it can move. Give me the flinch. I've been so good. Yeah, baby! Air Slash is not a balanced move. I'm telling you, Air Slash is not a balanced move. A perfect turn. I got a KO, I got James to use his Terra, and I didn't take a single point of damage. But we're not out of the woods yet. The problem is what happens next, because if it's Revavroom in the back, which I suspect that it is. Okay, it is Revavroom. I was right about this. Okay, Revavroom. Uh-oh. If Primarina goes down, I don't think I'm ever beating this Revavroom. I need to make these final 2 turns of Tailwind count. The good news is I do still have my Terra, and I've chosen Steel on Primarina specifically to counter the car. But what makes this difficult is this Annihilate. With lots of health and a Rage Fist stack already, it can easily KO all my Pokemon. So I decide to all in and try and take out the Ape. Primarina terastallizes and Annihilate doesn't protect. Now, all Noivern needs to do is hit. I lose because of that. That sucks so much. I think without that, I win the game. Moonblast does a ton, but not enough. And James double attacks, KOing Noivern, meaning all I have left is my Primarina and my final Pokemon, Espathra. And now, things are looking dire. There's 1 turn of Tailwind left, but James can protect both of his Pokemon to stall it out. Espathra will get a speed boost to ensure that it moves first, but with leftovers on Annihilate, it'll survive a Lumina Crash, meaning it can KO Primarina, letting Revavroom then solo Espathra. But I don't have another Pokemon to go into. Espathra is the only one I have left. Espathra is sent out. Citrus Berry, Revavroom, and we already know leftovers on the Ape. Espathra doesn't have speed boost? Wait, Espathra gets Frisk? That's right. Frisk is such a good ability in draft that I have not 1, but 2 Pokemon with it. And sure, normally you would prefer to have speed boost on Espathra, so it wasn't like I was planning on running Frisk every week, but here I don't want speed boost. Because not only does Frisk reveal James's Revavroom is holding the Citrus Berry, but it also does something else. It doesn't cause Espathra to get any faster. But why is that helpful? James protects both his Pokemon, stalling out my final turn of Tailwind. Primarina is the next move with a Hyper Voice that's blocked by both protects, which leaves only Espathra, who sets up Trick Room. Oh my god, this Espathra really came in at the right time. Here's Trick Room, okay? That's right. This is minimum speed, Trick Room, max bulk, Frisk Espathra. And actually, it is even slower than my Primarina. This means that I can now combo Lumina Crash to drop James' special defense with my Life Orb Primarina to deal massive damage. This is pretty cool, but here I actually have a better option. Espathra launches a Helping Hand, and Annihilate fails a double protect. Primarina moves before Revavroom, launching a boosted Hyper Voice. Here's Hyper Voice, so Revavroom is in fact, oh my god, that's strong. And Revavroom goes for a parting shot to try and slow down Primarina, but it's too little too late. 1 more Helping Hand Hyper Voice closes out game 1. Now I need to decide which Pokemon I want to bring to game 2. I feel like I have to go for Glamora. Like, I think it's somewhat unlikely to work, to be honest. I think it's pretty unlikely that it works, just being blunt about it. But if it does work, it's so funny. If it works, wait, if what works? Well, most of my Pokemon have pretty obvious synergy together. You've already seen the strength of my Tail Room mode in game 1, and Hariyama is just like an obvious addition. With Fake Out, I can go for an early game Trick Room and then a late game Tailwind with Noivern in the back. Basically, the reverse of what I just did in game 1. But then, why is Glamora here? Rather than explain it, I think it's probably easier if I just show you. But there is one problem with this Gambit. The thing is, I can't really beat Revavroom with this, but that's okay. I think I had to bang it and not bring you Revavroom after how bad it was into Primarina with Steel Terra, because it's probably Protect, Parting Shot, Steel move, Poison move. Game 2 begins with a new lead from both of us. Ninetales and Blastoise against my Hariyama and Glamora. I mean, that's pretty good, right? It's good and bad. It's not good. The problem is that I have no information on this Blastoise. So I decided to take a gamble with a move that will completely backfire if Blastoise uses Fake Out into my Glamora. The turn begins. He switches. Oh, Annihilate, Annihilate, Annihilate. Please. Oh no, he has Revavroom. It's over. Blastoise does go for Fake Out, but into Hariyama. And Glamora goes for Rock Polish? What is going on here? Hariyama's Flame Orb activates, which reveals that it has the Guts ability rather than Thick Fat. It also gives all of its moves a power boost. But why did I go through all the trouble of raising Glamora's speed? What was the point? Should I just go for it? Go for what? Well, here's the situation.
Like most of you all, James doesn't know what Glimmora wants to do here, but he does know that Glimmora learns Earth Power, which is a move that will one-hit KO his Revavroom. At the same time, I'm also threatening the very powerful move Meteor Beam with Glimmora, and if Hariyama gives Glimmora another power boost from like Helping Hand, it's possible that I could one-hit KO this Blastoise. In other words, I could KO other Pokemon. So James makes a reasonable defensive play, which starts by switching Blastoise into a Pokemon that resists Rock. Okay, he switched. Ninetales? Should we Protect? Oh no! And Protect makes sense here. He doesn't want to lose his Revavroom for no reason, and he doesn't know what moves my Glimmora has. It's a great defensive play. But there's a problem, because Hariyama is the next move, and it's not attacking into James's great defensive play, but into my own Glimmora. Hariyama's Bullet Punch deals half to Glimmora, but in doing so, triggers two conditions. First, Glimmora's ability Toxic Debris activates, which sets Toxic Spikes up on James's side of the field. These not only will break Ninetales' Focus Sash, but they'll also wear away at his Blastoise. More importantly, however, the super effective Steel-type damage activates Glimmora's Weakness Policy, doubling its attack and special attack. And so, even the bulky, poison-resisting Annihilate is not safe. Okay, I give him one stack of Rage Fist, which is like certainly not good, but here's Sludge Bomb. It does a lot of damage. If I get the poison, I'm in good shape. Oh, I'm in good shape. And suddenly, I have a Glimmora with double speed and double special attack, and the Toxic Spikes are up to limit switching. If anything had gone wrong at any point, this would not have worked. But now that it has, my position is incredible. There is one problem though. Annihilate isn't in range of another Sludge Bomb, and it also resists Glimmora's Rock-type moves. Earth Power and Energy Ball, which are the normal coverage moves of the Glimmora, also won't do enough for a KO. So wait, did I do all that work for nothing? That would be the case if my other attacking move were Earth Power, or Power Gem, or Energy Ball. Fortunately for me, it isn't. The turn starts and Glimmora moves first thanks to its doubled speed, launching a Dazzling Gleam and KOing the Annihilate. Now, unfortunately, Revavroom can use a Steel move to take out my Glimmora, except he misses Gunk Shot. Oh, he went after Hariyama. Oh my god. Okay, Close Combat comes out and Revavroom goes down. And I find myself up 4 Pokemon against 2 with Toxic Spikes up and my monster Glimmora set up and still alive. I did not think this was gonna work, I'll be completely honest. And when I saw Revavroom come out, I was like, oh, it's toast. James is forced into Ninetales and Blastoise, and Toxic Spikes activates on both, poisoning them and putting them on a timer. I feel like at this point, Hariyama has really done its job, and I can win the game with Glimmora and Primarina. I protect Glimmora, intending to let Hariyama go down. But James doesn't go for Fake Out, and Bullet Punch takes Ninetales to red HP. And despite the fact that I've lowered my defenses with Close Combat, Hariyama survives the double attack, in part because I trained it to be absurdly specially bulky. Now at this point, I am very confident that I'm gonna win. But one of the tiebreakers for who makes it into the playoffs is how many Pokemon you were able to preserve in your wins, and how many you were able to KO in your losses. After the first week, my differential is actually the worst out of anyone who won. So here, I'm gonna try and win with all 4 of my Pokemon still remaining. I switch Hariyama to Primarina and Terrastalize Glimmora to Fairy, while James Terrastalizes Blastoise to Poison. That's a sick looking Terra. Dazzling Gleam KOs Ninetales and hits Blastoise. Still does a lot of damage, and Muddy Water hits both, but it doesn't pick up a KO. And now the game is over. I protect both my Pokemon to get one more turn of poison damage, putting Blastoise into range of a not very effective +2 Sludge Bomb. I win game 2 without losing a Pokemon, and advance to a record of 2 wins and 0 losses in the tournament. But now's not the time to relax, because our next opponent is none other than the person who derailed my entire draft plan and grabbed one of the single strongest Pokemon in the same breath. It's time to take on Mount. In my opinion, Mount's the dark horse in this tournament. On the one hand, he is a very accomplished and respected Draft League player, but on the other hand, he has almost no VGC specific experience. In fact, as far as I'm aware, this is only his 2nd time playing VGC seriously, with the first time being the most recent VGC Draft League that happened before this one, where he ended up placing 1st, beating Aaron Zhang in the finals. To me, what this means is that Mount is very, very good at Pokemon generally, and that he's also a fast adapter to different formats. Due to his background, he also likely views the game differently than those of us who have played VGC exclusively for a while, which will make him even harder to predict. Taking a look at his draft, it's clear that he does his research. Mount grabbed the Pokemon that I personally pegged as #1 overall, Ursaluna Blood Moon. This Pokemon is already one of the best in the game, but in Draft League, it is somehow even better. It has so many good Terra types, items, and sets that it can run. Calm Mind, Assault Vest, Life Orb, Silk Scarf, Choice Specs, Iron Ball. Any one of these sets and more could come to this matchup alone. Mount also drafted Torkoal, which is one of the scariest Trick Room attackers that also gives him a weather mode. To set Trick Room, he has Oranguru, and to take advantage of the sun, he has Vileplume. Personally, I expect that all 4 of these Pokemon are going to come this week, in addition to Illumise. Illumise is not a very popular Pokemon, but it does function a bit like a cheaper version of Whimsicott with its Prankster ability and similar supporting moveset, including Tailwind, Encore, Fake Tears, and more. The last Pokemon that I expect is one of either Electivire or Blaziken, since they're both strong physical attacking options and otherwise the rest of the team is very specially based. I don't personally expect Copperajah, Scraggy, or Skiploom to come here, as I don't think they look especially strong versus my team. Mount's team, at a glance, looks like it leans very heavily into Trick Room, with both Ursaluna Blood Moon and Torkoal being quite slow. However, I think that against my team, Trick Room probably isn't going to work, and so I expect him to lean into Illumise's Tailwind as his primary game plan. I've chosen my team to work against both Trick Room and Tailwind, but I've given more attention to Tailwind. But before I break down my team for the week, I need to tell you something. The DC Parish have made their first and only roster change, and while I know fans will be devastated to hear it, the rumors are true. We have decided to amicably part ways with Dedenne. It's nothing personal. I'm sure that Dedenne's next team will be happy to have them and that they will be an asset. But here's the truth. Week 1, I played against Joey, who drafted 4 water types which are weak to electric. And yet, despite this, I still felt like if I brought Dedenne, I would be doing Joey a favor. But if I didn't feel like I could bring it to that matchup, I actually just can't imagine it coming versus any of the other ones. Of course, the draft is over, but before the end of week 4, each team is allowed to make a limited number of trades, dropping existing Pokemon to pick up undrafted ones in free agency, as long as you don't exceed your budget. Dedenne was a 1-point Pokemon, and to be honest, the list of good Pokemon you can get in the cheapest tier is pretty slim. However, there is one Pokemon that caught my eye, even back during the draft. A Pokemon that I now feel, with the benefit of seeing the other players' full teams, could be good against at least some of them. A Pokemon that I drafted in my first ever draft league 8 years ago. A Pokemon that I am bringing this week versus Mount. Please welcome to the team, Hisuian Sliggoo. Okay, technically, I drafted regular Sliggoo 8 years ago, but that was only because the Hisuian version didn't exist yet. This Pokemon actually has very good stats for a 1-cost Pokemon that can augment its stats even further with Eviolite, and the Steel typing is something that my team lacks. Its move pool is a lot worse than Gudra's, which is why I passed on it initially, but I've since come around. I think Sliggoo can do it. And after all,
Can't spell Sliggoo without GG. GG or without O.
without ooh. Joining Sliggoo for its debut appearance in a battle is Arcanine, my first pick, who is actually super good here, with its fire typing to abuse Torkoal's Sun, and to resist its fire moves, plus Snarl to slow down the special attackers, especially Ursaluna. Hariyama makes a second appearance, though with a different set this time. Rather than the Flame Orb offensive behemoth that I brought last week, this time I'm combining Thick Fat and Assault Vest to make it incredible versus Torkoal. Hariyama is actually just barely slower than Ursaluna Blood Moon, so it'll double as my insurance against Trick Room. To help against an Ursaluna that's not inside of Trick Room, Noivern is my go-to lead in game 1, which I think I've done that every game 1 so far. Anyway, normally Noivern would have to worry about the Ursaluna and Illumise lead, which would threaten to Tailwind and then outspeed it, but my Noivern is holding the Choice Scarf item. This not only lets it outspeed Vileplume in the sun and Ursaluna inside of Tailwind, but I can actually use the move Switcheroo to give the Choice Scarf to Ursaluna, Torkoal, Oranguru, or Illumise to make them super awkward to use. Remember, Blood Moon can't be selected twice in a row, so Choice Scarf completely disables Ursaluna's strongest attack. Primarina is my 5th Pokemon, running a Calm Mind leftover set to try and set up and sweep, and Espathra, well, you'll see. Mount and I get connected, but the Pokemon he's running aren't what I was expecting. Okay, Illumise, Blood Moon, Electivire, Blaziken, Copperaja, and Scraggy. So he did not bring Trick Room, interestingly enough. So he has 2 Pokemon I wasn't really expecting. But I was right that he's leaning more into a Trick Room or a Tailwind mode than a Trick Room mode. He doesn't have Torkoal either. So that is not great because it means my prep was kind of bad. Now, initially, my plan was to open with Hariyama and Noivern and have Primarina and Sliggoo in the back. However, should I even bring Sliggoo game 1? I almost wonder if Arcanine is better, actually. With so many physical attackers and both Torkoal and Oranguru not present, I decided to pivot and swap Sliggoo out of my game 1 mode for Arcanine. The battle begins. It is Clear Amulet Electivire and Eviolite Scraggy. This is not the lead that I was expecting. I thought he would open with Illumise and Ursaluna, and I lock in my move without fully thinking through the consequences. Scraggy outspeeds my Hariyama due to me being minimum speed, and their fake out stops my fake out. Noivern switcheroos Scraggy, but oh, this probably is Ice Punch, I just realized. Yeah, I realized I need to think this through a little bit more. I need to switcheroo the Electivire, actually. I think I legitimately lose off of that turn, unfortunately. Because now I don't think I can stop Scraggy. The entire idea of bringing Noivern this week was so that I can switcheroo a Pokemon, make them more difficult to use, and then survive the turn afterwards. So not only did I switcheroo a low priority target, but I also lost my Noivern. The reason this is so bad is because the Electivire guaranteed outspeeds 2 of my remaining 3 Pokemon. And realistically, probably my Arcanine too. I've got no speed into the same starting speed stat. This is my worst turn 1 of the tournament so far. Electivire and Primarina both protect and block a move, as Scraggy locks itself into Super Fang. However, because of the Choice Scarf, I can't stop Super Fang from coming out. I don't want to Grass Terra Primarina because I know that Blaziken is likely in the back. So I make the only move I can think of and switch Primarina out into Arcanine. I legitimately might not see the back mons. My switch is good, catching an Ice Punch, but Super Fang does half of Arcanine's health. Now, Wild Charge can KO my Arcanine, and there's nothing I can do about it. Scraggy switches to Blaziken, and Electivire KOs Arcanine. I'm so toast. Hariyama attacks. -1 Drain Punch, not very much damage. I'm super boomed. And down 2 against 4, I've clearly lost. Electivire KOs Primarina as Blaziken reveals Brave Bird, doing a ton to Hariyama. Drain Punch KOs Blaziken, but I'm never winning a 1 against 3. Without even seeing the final Pokemon, I lose game 1. Okay, this is really bad. So there is one piece of good news, which is that Sliggoo is actually pretty good here. So I'm thinking about betting on Sliggoo, which would be a huge gambit. I mean, think about what I'm actually saying here. I'm trying to take down the 20-point Pokemon drafted first round with my 1-pointer slug I picked up 2 weeks after the draft finished. However, the more I look at the team that Mount has, and the more I look at the specific Pokemon that I brought, the more I understand. If there is any way for me to win game 2, it's with the slug. And I'm not talking about using Sliggoo as a supporter, but as a carry, as the carry. It's time for Sluggo mode. Sliggoo is uniquely positioned in this matchup to rip through Mount's team, but only if I can pull off a rather complicated setup. To be honest, I somewhat expect Ursaluna plus Illumise lead here. Like if I were him, that's what I would switch to. So what's he gonna do? Game 2 begins and my instinct was right. Illumise and Ursaluna against my Espathra and Arcanine. Illumise sets up Tailwind, doubling my opponent's speed for 4 turns. Ursaluna is next to move, revealing that it's trained with some speed. And Earth Power hits my Arcanine, who survives. I trained Arcanine to be super tanky this week on the special side, just in case this exact scenario came up. Now it's time for Espathra, who goes for Calm Mind, and Arcanine KOs Illumise, knocking itself out with Flare Blitz. You're probably surprised to see Arcanine both tank that Earth Power and KO Illumise in exchange, but that's because while I invested almost all my stat points into my special defense, I still used an attack boosting nature to give Arcanine enough power to hopefully pick up this KO. In other words, this spread did exactly what I was hoping it would do, and all in the same turn. As the turn ends, Espathra gets its first speed boost. No Trick Room this week. Mount sends out that horrible Electivire that just ruined my day, as I send out my Hariyama. In order to get around Fake Out, Mount protects both of his Pokemon, but this lets Espathra go for a second Calm Mind, and get a second speed boost. It has now matched the Tailwind boost that Mount set up. But even with all of these boosts, Espathra can't KO either Pokemon. Lumina Crash just, at the end of the day, it's not that strong of a move. It's intended to combo, not to KO. Now I could protect, but if I do, I just delay the problem to next turn, which is that Espathra will probably go down to a double up. And I can't stop the double up here because I can't knock out one of their Pokemon before they can move. So wait, what was the point of spending so many resources to set up. The turn begins with terastallization. This should be Ursaluna Blood Moon, I think. Let's find out if they're max speed Jolly Electivire. This is why I didn't Drain Punch the slot. Surprisingly, the next Pokemon to move is Electivire, who wild charges a Spathra and deals over half its health. Now it's a Spathra's turn, and it goes for Baton Pass, which not only causes a Spathra to switch, it also passes along any stat boost it had to whatever comes in next. Okay, so I've kind of bet everything on Sliggoo, which is a weird thing to say, but it's the truth. Sliggoo takes Ursaluna Blood Moon, one of the single strongest attacks in the game, and it does like 20 damage. Good job, Sliggoo. Okay, and Drain Punch comes out and does a ton of damage. Okay, cool. So now what? This was what I bet the game on. Because Electivire revealed Wild Charge, Ice Punch, and Protect, I know that its last move is probably Follow Me. In other words, it can't easily damage the turbo bulky Dragon-type Sliggoo. Now, Ursaluna could under normal circumstances, but with 2 special defense boosts, it's not going to be doing enough either. I mean, you saw that Blood Moon damage. Sliggoo is not normally an offensive Pokemon, but with a doubled special attack stat, that's just not true anymore. And this is the final turn of Tailwind. When it ends, Sliggoo can outspeed Ursaluna thanks to the speed boost that it just picked up. I couldn't use Primarina here because Wild Charge would KO it, but Sliggoo is a whole nother story. Because Sliggoo is so tanky, I actually don't need to play defensive here, even though it is the last turn of Tailwind. The turn begins. Okay, they attack. That's not what I was expecting. This is about half my health. They barely survive. We need Muddy Water to connect this turn. They're still faster. That doesn't do very much though. No drop? Okay, hit both. Good job, Sliggoo. Okay. Hariyama Knockoff reveals that Ursaluna's held item is Silk Scarf, which I really needed to know. And as Tailwind ends, Mount sends out his final Pokemon, Blaziken. Blaziken's the bad situation. It is Blaziken. I mean, that's what I expected. Now, Blaziken is not what I wanted to see here. It's a physical attacker that could ignore my Calm Mind boost, and it will also outspeed Sliggoo with 1 speed boost. Plus, of course, it can hit it for super effective damage with close combat. However, I haven't Terra'd yet. And also, Blaziken doesn't have a speed boost this turn. If I go for Terra Water, Muddy Water, I am pretty likely to KO both of Mount's Pokemon, assuming that Muddy Water connects. But Mount could protect both his Pokemon this turn in order to get the speed boost. And then if I miss Muddy Water or I get crit, I might be in some trouble. But do I actually have a play that can punish a double protect here? I can KO the Ursaluna with Muddy Water. I'm just kind of expecting them to protect both this turn. Okay. Okay, I got the call right. Faster than Sliggoo, which is what I expected. Okay. That was a really risky play because if I got this turn wrong, I could have lost. But now I've healed Hariyama out of range of Blood Moon at the very least. Life Dew totally punishes the slow play of protecting both and guarantees that Sliggoo is no longer in KO range even with a critical hit. Blaziken KOs my Hariyama, which means the battle comes down to this. Is my 1-point slug able to knock out the 20-point Pokemon that completely derailed my draft? I honestly only need to hit it on Blaziken, I think. Actually, if I hit either, okay, I hit both. Oh, okay. I am so stressed again. Okay, but Sliggoo was really good here. Sliggoo was really, really good here. I need to take a second and like calm down because I was like fine after game 1, but now that I've won, I'm quite nervous. Big Slig. Big Slig indeed. My microphone was showing this whole time? Oh man, sorry. I didn't realize. As I jump into game 3, I take a second to think about what to do. We've learned some good information. I'm gonna do the same thing again. I think this time the goal is to Baton Pass to Primarina because we have enough information to say that I think that's gonna work. The problem with passing into Sliggoo again is that Mount is gonna be expecting it, and therefore he might try and punish me on the turn where I'm most vulnerable when Baton Pass goes off. To catch him off guard, this time I'll try and get my boost onto Primarina. The game begins. Electivire Scraggy once more, okay, cool. I have a Spathra and Hariyama the Gourmet. Scraggy lends a Fake Out into Hariyama, stopping it from moving. Electivire's Wild Charge deals half, as a Spathra gets a Calm Mind and its first speed boost. Here's the issue. I'm dead to another one, but also if I Baton Pass into Primarina, that also dies. To get around this, I go for Protect with the Spathra and Drain Punch to try and put Electivire in range. We want to see Wild Charge here. Okay, that's actually ideal, I think, because now it's going to be in range of something else. Of Lumina Crash, and they go for Foul Play actually, so that's interesting, but I might just want to attack. It's a lot of damage. Now, Electivire will go down to Lumina Crash, and thanks to my speed boost, I outspeed it. Once I get rid of Electivire, it is way safer to Baton Pass into Primarina. They switched, okay. Who's coming in? Who's coming in? Who's coming in? Blaziken. Electivire protects. Okay, that's not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. Okay, hang on. I can still do this, I think. Can I do this? Yes. Okay, wait, I know how to do this. I knock off Blaziken's item, okay. I take away the sash. Oh, what sash? Here's the idea. If I can get Arcanine next to a Spathra, I can use extreme speed to KO Electivire while safely baton passing into Primarina. Now, I could just switch my Hariyama into Arcanine, but the problem is if Mount reads this and switches Electivire into Scraggy, it can then use Fake Out to double into a Spathra for a KO, and I don't have a punish for it. So I need a play that stops both Electivire and Fake Out from Scraggy. Fortunately, I have just the one. The important thing here is that, like, I might lose my Hariyama and my Terra for kind of no reason, but the important thing here is that I couldn't let both, I had to cover both Electivire. I can't explain it, okay? But this is fine, even if where's my screen? I can't see anything. Okay, I block Wild Charge. Good thing I didn't baton pass. Oh, I Terra'd for no reason, but that's okay. They thought I was gonna baton pass this turn because, chat, I have a secret that I haven't shown yet. A secret that could legitimately win me this game as I get rid of Electivire. Chat, I'm not live, I'm talking to nobody. Oh wait, they're flying Terra Blaziken. Because I could potentially KO the Blaziken just with Lumina Crash here if I wanted. But here's the situation. They're gonna go back into Scraggy, I think, which allows me to reveal, yes, okay, the tech that I haven't shown yet. I haven't shown Hariyama's fourth move, which is Upper Hand, which can stop Fake Out. Even though I'm slower than the Scraggy, I can still stop the Fake Out. So they're +1, it's brilliant. You see, with Terra flying, I ensured that the only way I was getting knocked out that turn is if Wild Charge knocked me out, in which case Electivire was still in the field. And if Hariyama goes down and Electivire is still in the field, Arcanine gets to come in and cover Baton Pass with extreme speed. But if I either KO Electivire or Electivire switches and Scraggy comes out, with Terra flying, I ensure that Hariyama survives. That means that I can stop Fake Out with Upper Hand. Upper Hand stops Pokemon from using priority moves, which means no Fake Out from Scraggy. With Fake Out nullified, that lets a Spathra KO Blaziken. And then surely I win the game from there, with the Spathra still alive and all the boosts still present. There's only one problem. Lumina Crash and Upper Hand. It's the same priority. I'm the dumbest guy of all time. It's the same priority. It's the same priority. Yeah, remember how I said that Upper Hand worked if I'm slower? That is true of Follow Me and the prankster moves of Illumise, which is what I put Upper Hand on this team to stop in this specific matchup, but I forgot that it only works against Fake Out if you're the faster user. And to be fair, the reason why I thought this is that I've been testing Upper Hand Flamigo for like actual tournaments, and it's faster than the Fake Out users I keep hitting with Upper Hand, Incineroar and Rillaboom. So I just forgot. It's Flamigo's fault, okay? But that means that here, I completely wasted my turn and I lost my entire setup for no reason. Okay, so obviously that's pretty bad because I wasted an entire turn there. And I think that for many players, I could see a world where this would derail me completely. However, I'm actually still in okay shape. And I think I would really kick myself if I lost this game because I lost a winnable game when I could still win. The problem is that the Scraggy is faster than my Primarina as well. So that's not good. We know it has Foul Play. I've used my Terra. I'm not in good shape here by any means. However, because I still have my defensive core, I think it's still probably possible to win. So I'm gonna go into Primarina here. Listen, sometimes in life, you make mistakes and you do something stupid, but that doesn't mean you should just throw in the towel and give up the moment you get embarrassed. And right here, I am still in this game. With Electivire down, my Primarina is still a monster, boost or otherwise, and it's capable of KOing the two Pokemon that are on the field in front of it, and I can use that pressure to my advantage. My guess is that they're really worried about this Primarina. We did save Arcanine this whole time. What I'm expecting is Terra flying Brave Bird here. And the reason why I made this play of Protect and Switch is that it should open up the ability to go from Moonblast into the Scraggy and Flare Blitz into the Blaziken, which would potentially be a double KO, and from there I think I can win. Because I've left my Hariyama kind of vulnerable the whole game. Now, if this is Brave Bird into my Arcanine to become scarier, okay, it is into this. The question is what's Scraggy doing? I kind of expect Super Fang here. Okay, but it's into Primarina. Yeah, my guess is that the last Pokemon is Ursaluna Blood Moon. With the Terra successfully baited out, I can step on the gas. Brave Bird does half to Primarina, but Arcanine KOs Blaziken in exchange with Flare Blitz. Scraggy does outspeed Primarina and cuts its remaining HP in half, but Moonblast picks up a one-hit KO in exchange. And now it is all down to the final Pokemon, and in many ways, the first Pokemon, Ursaluna Blood Moon. But this is not a fair fight. It's a 3 against 1. My Arcanine has both Snarl and Morning Sun, meaning it can both weaken Ursaluna and keep itself healthy. Mount has also already used his Terra, which means that my Assault Vest Hariyama in the back can actually hit it for super effective damage and heal itself up. I have completely flipped this game around. Snarl connects, and Ursaluna's Earth Power doesn't KO Arcanine. Mount knew that he was far behind and had to hope that I made a mistake. Unfortunately for him, my Primarina is yet to move, and ends the game with a Hyper Voice. Oh my god, okay. After that game one, I thought it was turbo toast. I genuinely was like, given how bad that game one was and given how hard Electivire is, I thought there was no way we were bringing it back. The DC Parish advanced to a record of 3 wins and 0 losses in the league, thanks in part to the big efforts of one little slug. But we're not even halfway through the season, and my next opponent is the one that fans are saying has the single strongest draft in the entire tournament. It's time to take on Nekkra. Nekkra is most known for her exceptional commentary across a multitude of different games. But don't let the fact that she spends time behind the commentary desk give you the wrong impression. She stays back there as a kindness to the rest of the field. What makes her especially scary as an opponent is, in my opinion, her breadth of knowledge. Rosemary's not only a caster for Pokemon, but also for many other games as well. And she does her research for all of them. I've actually commentated with Rosemary before in both Pokemon and Teamfight Tactics, so I can tell you firsthand that the amount of work that she does to prepare is too immense for me to accurately describe. And it's exactly this wide, deep knowledge that makes her a formidable foe. She has a much broader perspective on strategies and game plans than your average Pokemon player. And given how many options her team has, that's a pretty big deal. Her most obvious threats are Tyranitar and Garchomp, two of the most infamous competitive Pokemon who have a multitude of different viable moves and items that they can run. Rosemary brought special attacking Garchomp week 1, and then as if that weren't enough, she brought special attacking Tyranitar week 2. So basically, if I let my guard down, I'm probably getting cooked. She also has Gyarados, who can function as both a supportive Pokemon or a setup sweeper, and Clefable, who works as either a redirector or just a special attacking menace. Rotom Mow gives her another ground immunity to pair with Garchomp, while Hitmontop offers the well-known Fake Out and Intimidate package. Truthfully though, after Garchomp and Tyranitar, the next Pokemon that I'm afraid of are a bit cheaper. First, there's Alchemy, whose signature move Decorate can double its partner's offenses even if they protect. Arguably the biggest threat on her team for my team though is her 7-point Pokemon, Houndstone. Houndstone's Sand Rush ability doubles its speed in the sand, allowing it to outspeed my entire team. Just like Basculegion, it also gets Last Respects, which is the Ghost-type move that gets stronger every time one of its partner Pokemon is KO'd. And somehow, I've managed to build a team without a single Ghost resistance. Good one, Wolf. Very smart, buddy. Now, at first glance, the matchup, it looks bad, okay? But there are 2 weaknesses that I think I can abuse to give myself a fair shot. First, while Rosemary's Pokemon are very good, many of them have a quadruple weakness. Tyranitar to Fighting, Gyarados to Electric, and Garchomp to Ice. By loading my team up with moves of these types, I can try and overwork the fact that Nekkra only gets 1 Terra, and I can do huge damage to any Pokemon that don't change their type. The second weakness also has to do with her type chart. See, Rosemary has only 1 Fairy resistance on her team, and it's Fletchinder, which is a Fire-type Pokemon that is also weak to water. My Primarina looks incredible here, but only if I can get into a position where it's attacking first. In order to do this, I'm betting everything on my 3rd pick overall, Trevenant, to try and set up Trick Room. I'll bring Noivern as well for some Tailwind support, but because the Houndstone is actually faster than Primarina in Tailwind if the sand is up, ultimately I think this battle comes down to Trick Room. The more time I spend preparing, the clearer it becomes. This battle is not going to be determined by Tyranitar or Arcanine, but by Trevenant and Houndstone. Do you guys think Houndstone is what happens if Arvin doesn't save his dog? I'm sorry. As Rosemary and I get connected, I remind myself what I'm expecting. We expect Tyranitar, Garchomp, Gyarados, Houndstone, and one of the fairies, either Clefable or Alchemy. And then the last one, Hitmontop, Rotom, Fletchinder, could be any of them. Scyther is also an option. Rosemary sends out Herbrings. Fletchinder, Garchomp, Tyranitar, Rotom, Mow, Scyther, and Houndstone. I gotta write this down, okay. Now, truth be told, I wasn't expecting Fletchinder or Scyther here, but I have made sure to respect them this week, just in case, because I feel like I keep getting blown up by Pokemon that I didn't expect to even come to the matchup. Now, Rosemary has chosen to leave behind a few key threats, specifically Gyarados and the 2 fairies. First of all, there's no fairy type and there's no Gyarados. So I think the first thing that I'm thinking is maybe I don't bring Glamora. Glamora is not very good versus Garchomp. or Tyranitar. But because of Alchemy and Clefable, I felt like I needed to bring it. So I prepared a specific set that could take on this team with Power Herb Meteor Beam that also had Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam to hit Tyranitar and Garchomp for at least a little damage. However, based on her brings, it's clear that Glimmora isn't going to be worth it here. So in other words, before we even begin, I'm already down to only 5 of my Pokemon that I can use in this matchup. I need to adapt on the fly because my original plan was to lead Glimmora and Noivern in game 1. However, I think that I'm going to pivot from my original plan. I think I'm not going to bring Glimmora here. I'm going to go with my Trick Room mode here with Noivern. I still like leading Noivern a lot, to be honest. Now the question is, what will Rosemary lead? Looking at her team, I would be really surprised to see anything other than if she doesn't lead both Garchomp and Tyranitar, I'd be quite surprised. The battle begins. So let's see here. This is I'm probably leading Arcanine into Clam, Garchomp and Tyranitar. I get 1 Intimidate down. Ideally, I get 2. Okay, Garchomp T-Tar. I'm faster. Clear Amulet Garchomp. Oh man. And it's Adrenaline Orb! She got me. Okay, cool. Despite not making a move yet, Rosemary has already gained an edge. Clear Amulet blocks Intimidate from affecting the Garchomp, and while it does work against Tyranitar, the Adrenaline Orb gives it a speed boost in exchange. Now, it can outspeed my Noivern. This is fine, I think, because I can go for Tailwind and Close Combat here. It will die though. That's fine. Do I need Arcanine for anything other than these two? Not really. The reason that the spot isn't as bad as it looks is because my Noivern is not only trained almost entirely in bulk, it's also holding the Yache Berry. So even if Tyranitar has Ice Punch or Ice Beam, I will still survive. And my Arcanine is carrying Close Combat for Tyranitar, as well as Wild Charge in case Gyarados came to the matchup. So despite the leads not going in my favor, I would say, I've still got some good moves that I can make. The turn begins. Okay, well, that's not good. Tyranitar turns into a flying type, turning its quadruple weakness to fighting into a resistance. This is okay though, like I know it looks pretty bad, but it's genuinely okay. Because Tyranitar has Terastallize, it now means that Garchomp cannot. But surprisingly, Noivern is actually the next Pokemon to move despite the Adrenaline Orb. And it sets Tailwind up as Arcanine's Close Combat does, well, not a lot of damage. Terra Blast covers for an Arcanine Terra to Grass, and Garchomp finishes the job with an Earthquake. This is okay. Like I lose Arcanine. I know this looks bad. I really do get that this looks bad. Okay, here's why this turn is not a disaster. With Arcanine down, I can go into Primarina, who I have trained to outspeed Garchomp inside of Tailwind. This week, Primarina is holding the Life Orb, and it has Dazzling Gleam to smack this Garchomp who now can't change its type. And remember, Rosemary's fairy resistances are few and far between. So the question is, how much does my Primarina do to Terra Flying Tyranitar with Dazzling Gleam? It doesn't do any damage, hello? Because of its absurd stats and new flying typing, Tyranitar takes only about half its health from Dazzling Gleam. Now my Primarina specifically could still KO this Tyranitar if I wanted because my last move is Weather Ball, which turns into a rock type move in the sand. But going for Weather Ball when Garchomp could just get a free turn out of it and Tyranitar could just protect, that sounds like a bad idea. Luckily for me, I have a play that can cover both Garchomp and Tyranitar this turn no matter which one protects and which one attacks. Garchomp protects, which is fine because Noivern is running a supportive set this week. And Super Fang goes into Tyranitar, which actually isn't fine because, well, it misses. I knew I was gonna miss. Dazzling Gleam comes out, but doesn't KO because I missed, as Tyranitar fires off a Rock Slide. Now, there's only 2 turns of Tailwind left. I'm down a Pokemon, and both Primarina and Noivern are starting to get into, like, pretty concerning territory when it comes to HP. But Garchomp just protected, which means that it's a sitting duck this turn. Knowing this, Nekkra switches Garchomp to Scyther and protects Tyranitar to stall out another turn of Tailwind. Noivern reveals that it also is holding Breaking Swipe, which does a little damage and lowers Scyther's attack. And Dazzling Gleam drops it below half health. But now, I still haven't taken a KO, and it is the last turn of Tailwind. Now, at first glance, this position looks pretty good, because even if Tailwind ends, I could just set it up again and go for a Dazzling Gleam in the same turn to KO the threats, because of course Noivern is the fastest Pokemon. The issue is Rosemary's unrevealed final Pokemon, who I am pretty sure is Houndstone. In the sand, it'll outspeed Noivern, KO it, and deny a second Tailwind. But in order to win, I need to make sure I get speed control again when the Tailwind ends this turn. But how? So, okay, this is kind of the crucial turn, and I have 2 main options here, which is I can switch to Trevenant, or I can just attack again. Switching to Trevenant means that I'm giving up on a second Tailwind and instead banking on setting Trick Room. While attacking with Noivern means that I think I will actually be able to get another Tailwind off. I think I switched to Trevenant here. It's a little bit risky. Trevenant comes out and activates its ability, Frisk, confirming that Scyther is Eviolite. Remember how I've been telling you how good Frisk is in Draft League and that I drafted 2 different Pokemon that could use Frisk? Well, What I neglected to mention is that I actually drafted 3. 30% of my team can give me crucial information every single time that they're sent out. This is another reason why I prioritized getting Trevenant so early, as I knew that any week I didn't want to use Harvest, I could run Frisk. Okay, actually this time I don't have any more Frisk users, I promise, and the trades are done, so I'm not going to do another bait and switch here, okay? There are no more Frisk users on this team, I promise. For real this time. Anyway, back to the battle. I'm actually not the only one switching out this turn, and it's a switch out of Tyranitar. Okay, this is probably Chomp, which is good. If it's Chomp, it's good. It's Rotom. She doesn't have Houndstone. Ref, no Houndstone. Ref, hello. She doesn't have Houndstone. Oh, that does a lot of damage. That might be choice item. As the turn ends, the Sandstorm damages Rotom first. Wait a second, Scarf Rotom. Now I can win the game if I get Trick Room up, but can I get Trick Room up? Rotom is Scarf, so it's reasonable to think that it would have Trick, and Trick would take away my Mental Herb and lock me into Trick Room. But without the Mental Herb, the Scyther could then taunt, and that would just deny the Trick Room. If I want to call out this play, I could switch in Noivern to punish it, but if I'm wrong, I'll lose the game. This is the turn that determines the game, and I do not have enough information to know what moves Rosemary has access to. I decide to stay in. Primarina protects, and Rotom goes for Volt Switch into it. The only Pokemon that can stop Trick Room now is Scyther, but... Oh, Tailwind. Okay, I almost, oh my god, overthought that. Now, as it turns out, Nekkra didn't have access to either Trick or Taunt, so she had no way to stop Trick Room. Setting Tailwind looks a little strange in this position, but what you have to understand is that she played to her out that I was going to make a mistake and let her KO my Primarina. To her credit, I actually very nearly did make this mistake, but with Trick Room up and everything already damaged, I have very nearly sealed this one up. My Primarina is in danger of going down soon to the combination of Life Orb recoil and Sandstorm damage. But I do have a trick left up my sleeve. Trevenant goes for Rain Dance, removing the sand damage, as Dazzling Gleam KOs both. This Primarina is gonna go dummy, because I can go Rain Dance plus Terra Fairy Gleam. Also, I have the strongest Weather Ball of all time right now. Rosemary's forced back into Tyranitar and Garchomp, and I could still lose to a Sand Veil miss, but with a Rain Dance and a Terra Stellar on Primarina, I cover for that too. I win game 1 with Primarina taking all 4 KOs. But it's worth noting that game was a bit easier because Rosemary didn't bring Houndstone, and I am sure that she's going to rectify that in game 2. So I think in game 2, I should definitely expect Houndstone to come out. So which Pokemon should I bring? Arcanine wasn't that good. It's Clear Amulet in the Garchomp. Is there a Trick Room up front mode I can do? And then I'm going to try it. I don't know if this is going to work, but I think I want to use my Dark Terror on my Trevenant, to be honest. That Choice Scarf Rotom is going to outspeed my Primarina, even if I do set up Tailwind. And I don't have a defensive Terra because I'm Terra Stellar this week. Between that and the Houndstone, I actually don't think that Tailwind is a reliable strategy here. So instead, I'm going to pivot, and I'll try and set Trick Room up early. It is a bit risky because I don't have any help to set up Trick Room, like I don't have Rage Powder from Venonat or Fake Out from Hariyama, but if I can pull it off, it could let Primarina sweep through everything now that I've confirmed that Nekkra's Tyranitar won't outslow it. That's the major reason why I didn't go for Trick Room early in game 1. I needed to confirm that the Tyranitar wasn't slower than Primarina. So Trick Room sounds pretty good, but the question is, can I actually set it up? I don't even think Arcanine's that good here, but Rotom Garchomp, so this is a Disquake potentially. I have Trevenant and Arcanine. This is an interesting position. On the one hand, I could just protect and Trick Room, but if Rosemary makes a reasonable play of like Volt Switch to bring in Tyranitar, my Arcanine actually becomes super vulnerable, and it doesn't really do anything against Tyranitar inside of Trick Room. But if I don't protect, what am I doing with Arcanine? Obviously, she's probably gonna Earthquake me, but I don't really have a switch in for this, so I wonder is it ever just sack Arcanine? I think sacking Arcanine for no reason is probably a bad play. Like, I want to get the Primarina in, which is why this leads us awkward. You know what? How bad could it be? Wait a second. How bad is it actually? I'm sacking. It's probably... Oh, Discharge. Okay. Maybe it's Rock Slide as well. Oh, wait. This play doesn't make any sense. Oh, wait. I'm a genius. Arcanine... as long as Trevenant doesn't flinch, I'm fine. Okay, I get rid of the Rotom, and I get a free switch here. So if I get Trick Room up, I win the game, I think. 70%? Okay. Going down here is awesome if I get the Trick Room up. If I get the Trick Room up, I'm big chillin'. However, I don't get the Trick Room up, I'm big. Oh, okay, I'm big chillin'. Okay, that was the best turn one I could have had. Not flinching on Trevenant, not flinching on either mine was really clutch, but especially on the Trevenant. If I had flinched there, I might have lost on the spot. But luckily, I was able to twist the dimensions. I send up Primarina as Nekkra reveals my #1 enemy. That's not good. Hello? Ref? Okay, I don't know anything about this Houndstone, except that I want it gone. Primarina is in a great spot offensively here, but I do need to be careful. If I Moonblast Garchomp, it could steal Terra or protect. If I go after Houndstone, it could also protect as well. And if I lose a Pokemon too early, I am going to be in very real trouble because my final Pokemon, I don't want to use it inside of Trick Room. So even though I got Primarina in under ideal circumstances, if I make a reckless play here, I could get absolutely reversaled, which is why I decide to go for a defensive play. I Terrastallize Trevenant to Dark as Rosemary Terra's Garchomp to Steel, and I protect Primarina. Shadow Sneak doesn't do much damage as Will-O-Wisp connects and burns Garchomp, cutting the damage from Rock Slide to barely anything. Now, Houndstone didn't protect that turn, so I'm thinking maybe it doesn't have it. I feel like I can try and get rid of it with Rain Dance and Weather Ball. Has protect. Okay. That's not good. That is not good. Garchomp takes advantage of my wasted turn by launching an Earthquake that whittles me down despite the burn. And now there's only 2 turns left of the Twisted Dimensions. I decide to double the dog. Oh, she didn't switch. Is Moonblast gonna do enough? It actually might not. Oh, I might have made a big old mistake. I didn't even heal that much either. Please get the KO. I wasn't gonna go for Weather Ball without setting up Rain Dance again. Okay, because I thought it might be Sash. Turns out it was Sash. Garchomp goes for another Rock Slide as my Pokemon are starting to get really low. Rosemary sends out her final Pokemon, Tyranitar, who sets up the sand. I decide it's best for Trevenant to Rain Dance, but I can only Weather Ball one of her Pokemon. The thing is, I'm just not that worried about the Garchomp, but maybe I should be. Maybe I should Weather Ball it. I decide to target Tyranitar. Yeah, it was a protect that I thought was coming, but I felt like I still was supposed to go for it. She's playing really well. That was a really good play. Yeah, Earthquake again. This damage is adding up like pronto. And Trick Room finally ends, with both Primarina and Trevenant at dangerously low levels of HP. I protect Primarina as Trevenant survives Garchomp's Rock Slide, but Rosemary hard read the protect and finishes off Trevenant with a Terra Blast that cannot miss. Also, she just hard read me again. What's going on here? Hello? Primarina is too low, so it's all gonna come down to my final Pokemon, Mamoswine. Now, under normal circumstances, Mamoswine is slower than Garchomp, which means that if Rosemary gets one Rock Slide flinch here, she could win the game. However, remember how earlier I told you that I didn't want my last Pokemon to be fighting inside Trick Room? That's because this Mamoswine is holding the Choice Scarf item, meaning it is the fastest thing on the field. High horsepower KOs the Steel-type Garchomp, and because Garchomp didn't get to attack, Primarina has just a little bit more health than Rosemary expected. It goes for Terra Blast. This is a special move. I might survive. Oh, okay. Big survive. And Primarina, Weather Ball in the rain with Torrent active. There's no Pokemon that can survive this while being weak to it, I think. And that's going to be the end of Tyranitar. So, and with that, the DC Parish defeat the Shoutcasting Sylveon with a record of 2 wins and 0 losses in the set, putting us at an overall record of 4 wins and 0 losses in the league. Now we are officially over halfway through the regular season. But before we get to week 5, we have something very exciting for you. It's a mid-season stats breakdown.
Hey there, I'm Brian David Gilbert here with some mid-season stats. Now this wolf guy seems to be back at his old tricks with Parish Song shenanigans. Honestly, feels a little like me at age 12 with one single song on my iPod, listening to it over and over and over again, except the song that Wolf chooses kills you, and the song that I had was Caramel Dancin'. It was a different time. As a result, his stats are a little funky. Primarina has shown up in 9 of the 10 games that Wolf has played so far, and in fact, only Primarina and Noivern have shown up in every set, which, just from a flavor perspective, bringing a bat with enormous ears to a concert that makes you die feels a little bit cruel. But it's not my team. Other than that, Espathra, that funky little ostrich with a bob, has appeared in more sets than Arcanine, even though Arcanine has appeared in more games. But it seems to be working for that avian diva, because Espathra, Venonat, Mamoswine, and Sliggoo are the only Pokemon that have gone undefeated in the games in which they have appeared. Sliggoo. Sliggoo's a half-baked Pokemon. It's not even fully evolved. It hasn't graduated Snail College. But it seems to be doing great, and speaking of how good Sliggoo seems to be, let's go ahead and talk about the KD differential. Half the team has a positive differential, the other half has a negative, because that's how halves work. But if we go ahead and take a look at the negative half, you'll find a couple Pokemon that are considered good, strong Pokemon. I'm talking about Arcanine, I'm talking about Trevenant, Noivern, as we have already mentioned. How do I know that those are good, strong Pokemon? It's easy. Their designs have more sharp points in them, and yet they're still getting their butts handed to them. Unlike Primarina, whose design is practically all circles, and yet is cleaning up with a differential of 13. That's the highest differential in the entire league. Not Arcaludon, not Typhlosion, Primarina, 16 KOs. Mamma mia, this mermaid loves to drag sailors to their death. Glamora has the second best differential with 4, followed promptly by Sliggoo with 3. Sliggoo is the third best Pokemon on this team. Do you think Arcanine feels bad about that? Cause I would. But Arcanine can't even feel that bad because Trevenant, Noivern, and Venonat have all managed to get 0 KOs, all while fainting at least once, meaning that each one of them has done worse than Dedenne, a Pokemon that never got off the bench and was traded away before week 3. So the next time someone says, you can't succeed if you don't try, remind them you also can't fail. Just a little life lesson from Brian. Don't try, not worth it. Mediocrity, A-okay. Anyway, that's the mid-season report. Why don't we get back to it and see how the rest of this shakes out? Sliggoo, seriously?
It has been an amazing start, but there's still 3 opponents that we've yet to face before the playoffs. And the next one has a roster that every single coach in this league is scared of. It's time to take on one of the most decorated VGC players in history, one of the most evil draft league teams ever built, and one of my closest friends. It's time to take on Aaron Cybertron Zhang. Aaron and I have been friends since 2011, and when I say that he's truly one of the best people I know, I don't say it lightly. Despite the fact that I'm actually older than him, he's someone that I've looked up to for as long as I can remember. He's kind, funny, compassionate, very hardworking, and incredibly smart. Actually, here's something you may not know. He's the reason why I started making videos in the first place. Aaron was really the first VGC-focused YouTube channel back in 2014. And after a couple years seeing how much fun he seemed to be having with it, I went to him for advice. This is a conversation that I still remember despite it happening actually maybe over 10 years ago at this point, pretty close to it. I went to Aaron and I was like, hey man, like, you know, your videos are so good. Like, it looks like you're having a lot of fun. Like, I think that I would like doing it, but to be honest, I think I'd be really bad. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think I could be okay at this YouTube thing? And he was like, honestly, dude, like, I really think you could do it. Like, I think you'd be really good at it. Like, I think you should go for it. And he helped me figure out equipment and all the other stuff and gave me the, you know, the tips and tricks that he'd learned. Anyway, it's just interesting to look back because, like, if I hadn't been friends with Aaron, I might have a totally different career and, you know, maybe a totally different life. Who can say? Anyway, I tell you all of this for 2 reasons. First, I want you to know that however great you may think that Aaron is, he's better. Second, and more relevant to this league, I think it really is thrown into sharp contrast when you look at his team. Aaron, dude, what have you created? Dondozo and Tatsugiri, Weezing and Slacking, Murkrow and Goldengo. 3 of the most evil duos to go up against, and Aaron has them all. And as if dealing with 1 Weezing or 1 Dondozo wasn't enough, he can even bring them back from the grave with his Revival Blessing comment. Even his support Pokemon are menacing. The 1-pointer Yanma can use Compound Eyes to boost the accuracy of Hypnosis. Toadschool can use Spore without fear inside of Neutralizing Gas, and Dugtrio's Arena Trap stops its foes from escaping from this nightmare. My plan for this week is to try and handle all 3 of Aaron's duos while still respecting his lesser used Pokemon. First and most pressing of his Pokemon is Dondozo. I need some kind of way to remove the stat boosts. In this case, I'm going to bet on Trevenant, who learns Haze. And with a ton of physical defense, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to survive the big fish's onslaught. Next up is Slacking, and especially when it's paired next to Weezing. I'm going to run Ability Shield Intimidate Arcanine to hopefully slow down the strategy even if Weezing is around. Lastly, and most crucially, is Goldengo, who I would say is a real problem. The issue is I have no idea what Terra type and moveset and item Aaron's going to run. And it's pretty tough to cover for everything given how good Goldengo is. Arcanine helps if they don't Terra, and I add Hariyama to help versus some of the types, but I'm still not sure that it's enough. So I come up with a gambit. I'm going to try and lead with 2 Pokemon that normally don't especially threaten Goldengo, and try and go for a surprise KO while he doesn't feel pressured to Terra. Aaron and I get connected, and there's 1 Pokemon that I'm happy is not coming. Palmot Merker, no Yanma, bzz. No Yanma bzz, no Yanma bzz, no Yanma bzz. Surprisingly, Aaron's actually left Dondozo at home, so my Haze is worthless. My haze is ultra turbo omega ultra worthless, okay? The big question is, should I go for my gamble in game number 1? I feel like he's gonna leave Murkrow plus Goldengo, which I'm not happy about, but I still feel like I need to try and cheese him. I decide to go for it. If it works, I'll get such a big advantage off the bat. Of course, if it doesn't, I very well might lose on the spot. The leads are sent out, and Aaron starting with Goldengo and Murkrow. Goldengo is the single biggest threat to my team. If I can get it here, I'll be in great shape. Noivern reveals Eviolite and Metal Coat, so in theory Goldengo could protect. But is it gonna protect in front of a potential Tailwind? I mean, I don't think this is gonna work, but I'm gonna go for it, right? I need this thing dead. Like, he could Terra Water here, but I don't think he will. Murkrow. I lose. I lose on the spot. I have stupid Scarf Primarina. Oh God, please make it rain. Oh no! Oh no. Oh man, and I revealed Scarf. Oh, that's not good. Chat, that I wouldn't even have killed. I'm the worst of all time. Okay, that's not good. Make it rain, make it rain, make it rain, make it rain, make it rain. Okay, make it rain, cool. Okay, chat, I'm cooked. No, I can still win, I can still win. I just basically threw the game on the first turn, it's fine. Well, that's not good. I lost Noivern. My stupid Choice Scarf Primarina is now locked into a fire move versus a water type threat, and I've gained literally 0 ground. The only good news is that Goldengo is now weak to Trevenant. I decide to switch Primarina into Trevenant as Murkrow sets up Tailwind, and Goldengo goes for another Make It Rain. Flare Blitz in the sun KOs Murkrow, which actually makes things a bit awkward as Aaron gets a free switch into Pommet. If I can get Trick Room up, the match is still winnable. I protect Arcanine, but Double Shock hits Trevenant and drops it to yellow HP, where Citrus Berry activates and heals it to exactly the same amount as it had before. Goldengo launches a Shadow Ball, but it's -2 special attack, and even if he's Modest Max, I live almost all. Oh, Trevenant is so good. Special defense drop, that's okay. Trick Room is up. Harvest will always activate here due to the strong sunlight that Noivern set up, and it heals Trevenant back to yellow HP. And now, I'm actually the one in the driver's seat, because this Goldengo is a water type. I decide that Aaron has to play defensive and hedge my bets. Goldengo switches into Slacking. Aaron's brought it without wheezing, and he protects Pommet. My Hornleech doesn't do too much damage, but Arcanine reveals that it is carrying Howl, which boosts not only its attack, but Trevenant's too. As the turn ends, Harvest activates again, and Trevenant is suddenly back to green HP. Aaron still has Tailwind up, so my Arcanine is guaranteed to move before Slacking because of the Twisted Dimensions. Unfortunately, I don't know right now if Slacking has Sucker Punch, and if it does, it'll KO my low HP Arcanine. I decide to hedge my bets with a defensive play. This is the last turn of Sun. I want to see Sucker here. I had a better play, that's my bad. Knockoff hits Trevenant, but it doesn't do that much despite the Life Orb. And Pommet goes for a close combat that's blocked by Protect. Harvest activates again. This is the crucial turn. Slacking can't attack, so I could ignore it and try to KO Pommet, but the issue is that Pommet could Protect. With 2 turns of Trick Room left, I would really like to get a KO this turn, but to do it safely, I have to make a call. Is Pommet gonna Protect on this turn? Okay, I got it right. Hornleech just half to Pommet at +1. Excellent. Okay, and Slacking is faster than Arcanine. Okay, that's really important to note. With Pommet down, Goldengo is forced back in. But I still have 1 turn of Trick Room, and I'm threatening to KO both of Aaron's Pokemon thanks to the Howl boost. Aaron protects Goldengo, which blocks a Hornleech, but Arcanine KOs Slacking. And I'm now up 3-1. Unlimited berries! I'm rich! I protect Arcanine as Make It Rain KOs Trevenant thanks to the earlier special defense drop from Shadow Ball. But this just means that I can go into my Choice Scarf Primarina. My stupid Scarf Primarina is going to bring home this game. Because both of my Pokemon outspeed both of his, I can go all out here. I Terrestrialize Arcanine to fire and launch Moonblast and Flare Blitz, picking up a KO. Oh, even with the terrible weather while play, we still won game 1. Okay, we gotta lock in because that was not a good turn 1 for us, and we survived. Good job, Arcanine. Oh, okay, I don't think I can bring Primarina again, chat. I really don't think I can bring Primarina again. But also, how do I beat the Goldengo? Now, I would say that in that game, my leads really didn't work. So the question is, what am I gonna do in game 2? I try and figure it out, but it's not so easy, and my time is getting lower and lower. And with 5 seconds left on the clock, I make a snap decision. I'm doing this. It's not smart. It's not smart, but I want to bring a Spothra. Unfortunately, I was right, and bringing a Spothra here looks to have been a mistake, as I see the leads from Aaron, Pommet, and Goldengo. So like, probably this is a fake out nasty plot, right? Aaron goes for Fake Out, stopping Arcanine from moving as I set up Light Screen. But Aaron sets up a nasty plot, doubling Goldango's special attack. Aaron brings in Murkrow and protects Goldango as I set up Reflect, and I try and launch a Flare Blitz, which is blocked. Now the question becomes, how much damage can I even do to this Goldango? Here's the Terra, it's probably water. It's not good, okay? I know it's not good. You don't have to tell me. I know it's not good. But he's not even gonna tail me. He's just gonna Brave Bird and try and kill both. Rude champ. That's not good. Oh man, I got no attack anymore. I should extreme speeded. I did nothing. Am I dead? I'm super dead, right? Burn, burn, burn. I've been good. Make it rain? That's not good. That is not good, chat. Okay, that's bad. That's real bad. Because Murkrow has Feather Dance, there's no way that I can bring in Hariyama. But the good news is that I can go into Trevenant, who has Dark Terra, which makes it immune to Prankster and gives it resistance to Shadow Ball. I switch Arcanine to Hariyama to reset the attack drops and Terra Trevenant. In order to win this game, I need to get Trick Room up. Murkrow goes for Brave Bird, but thanks to my Terra and the Reflect, it doesn't do all that much damage. All that matters now is whether or not Trevenant survives this Make It Rain. Oh wait, but I needed to do it. Oh, they crit me. Okay, it didn't matter. It didn't matter, I got crit. Okay, that's gonna be game. Smadge. I've no longer got a way to win against this still boosted Goldango. I play out the rest of the battle to KO Murkrow, but this game ended the moment that Trevenant went down. Now, it's all gonna come down to game 3. The issue is that, against the leads that Aaron brought, I don't really have a safe way to deal with his Goldango. Trevenant isn't helpful until Goldango Terras and is pressured to Terra itself. Primarina has already blown the surprise factor of Sunny Day and Weather Ball. Noivern can't do any damage to it. Hariyama and Arcanine can hit it before it Terras, but they're both pretty suspect afterwards, and Espathra's Light Screen gets outpaced by Nasty Plot. No matter which way you slice it, this is going to be really tough. As Team Preview continues to tick down, I am running out of time. I don't like this plan at all. Okay, I have an idea. It's a huge gamble, but I have an idea. The game begins, and Aaron sends out Weezing and Goldango into my Arcanine and Trevenant. This is my gamble. By leading Trevenant, I put pressure on Aaron to deal with it right away, or else Trick Room could go up. My plan is simple. Switch Trevenant out and go for a Howl, getting Hariyama and Arcanine together and boosted, and try and use their new attack boost to pressure Goldango. Biggest question is it gonna work? Okay, that's very good for a turn 1. That is extremely good. Well, let's see what the Weezing does. I guess it's gonna be, oh, he went for Protect. Okay, Weezing is Protect. The best turn 1 possible. I got both my Pokemon to +1 attack without anything going wrong. Now it's time to try and get rid of this Goldango. Goldango switches out into Pommet, but it goes down to my Fake Out and Flare Blitz. Weezing goes for Strange Steam. That did infinite damage. Bro, no. Life Orb. Oh, Life Orb's on slacking. That's bad. With the confusion, I no longer have a safe way to deal with the slacking that just switched in. Without the confusion, I could just attack it with both of my Pokemon and accept that I'm losing something here, but that doesn't really work when Hariyama could totally fail to attack. I feel like I have to switch to clear the confusion. So I extreme speed into Weezing to get a little damage down, assuming that Arcanine is gonna faint. Surprisingly, oh, we knock off this slot. Okay, I'm still alive. Weezing finishes the turn with some good damage from Strange Steam. I need to get Trick Room up this turn or I am going to lose. I Terra Dark Trevenant and decide to call that Aaron's gonna go for a knockoff into the tree. Unfortunately, slacking knocks out Arcanine and Weezing reveals Taunt, resulting in me gaining 0 ground. I send out Hariyama and try and reposition. I Fake Out slacking and bring up Primarina, who takes a Strange Steam. My only chance to win now is with one final Gambit. Like, he may be afraid, basically, the way that I can still win this is if I lock into Psychic and I KO Weezing this turn and I basically turn it into a 2 versus 1. If Primarina can KO Weezing this turn and I sacrifice Trevenant in exchange, with Knockoff and Drain Punch on my Assault Vest Hariyama, it might be possible to win. Not likely, but possible. This is my last chance at this game. I switch Trevenant in and Aaron terastallizes Weezing. Nice play, really nice play. Psychic doesn't do enough damage, and slacking KOs Primarina as Sludge Bomb hits Trevenant and gets a poison. I am still fighting, but the paths to victory are closing quickly. I'm forced back into Hariyama and go for one final Hail Mary. Fake Out hits slacking as Weezing taunts my tree, and I go for a Horn Leech. Trevenant, no. And now the game is truly over. Slacking KOs Hariyama as Weezing KOs Trevenant, and the DC Parish lose their first round of the league. putting us at a record of 4 wins and 1 loss. It's tough. Draft League is brutal. My players are demoralized. Espathra has her head in the sand. And things aren't getting any easier, because with only 2 weeks left in the regular season, we're going up against one of the most prolific teams in Draft League history. It's time to take on the New York Mankeys, coached by Shady Penguin. Now, you might remember Shady's team from the draft, but the New York Mankeys have made a major overhaul of their roster, using every single one of their available trades to get some new faces into one of the most storied Draft League teams. Arguably the biggest swap that coach Shady Penguin made is that he dropped his first pick Ursaluna in order to grab King Gambit. But that's not all. Shady has also downgraded a number of his other Pokemon in order to pick up the Sneasler, one of the top metagame threats. His other changes include dropping Scrafty, Orthworm, Fungus, Driftblim, and Armarouge in exchange for Mudsdale, Thwackey, Drifloon, Salamence, and the aforementioned Sneasler and Cringe Gambit. Now, normally in draft leagues, you would have a sense for your opponent's tendencies this late into a season, but thanks to the roster changes Shady recently made, I've got no idea which Pokemon or which sets he actually prefers. Despite this, I've got some clear standout threats on my roster. Shady has exactly 0 Pokemon that resist Fairy, so Primarina, definitely a bring here. In order to help versus the Sneasler, I know that I want Arcanine, although I need to watch out for King Gambit because it has the Defiant ability, so I'll bring Mirror Herb on Arcanine to potentially steal those attack boosts. Noivern provides speed control and can help support my Focus Sash Mamoswine, whose ice coverage hits a ton of Shady's Pokemon for super effective damage. I'll round my roster out with a Espathra with a Calm Mind Baton Pass set I can hopefully use to set up my Primarina, and the return of a Pokemon that I haven't used since week 1, Venonat. I know it looks bad at first glance because Shady has a lot of like super effective moves into it, but if I use Terra Dark on it, it actually ends up strong into a majority of Shady's Pokemon aside from the Sneasler. If I get rid of the Sneasler, I do think that Venonat can pop off here. As the battle begins, I see which Pokemon Shady brought. Okay, he has a lot of the Pokemon I was worried about, although it is mostly the Pokemon I expected, so I decided to go with the game plan that I made, starting off game 1 with Noivern and Mamoswine. The battle begins, and I'm facing down Sneasler and Indeedee. Noivern reveals that Sneasler's holding the Psychic Seed and Indeedee has Citrus Berry. The Psychic Surge immediately activates Sneasler's Psychic Seed, which then causes the Unburden ability to double Sneasler's speed. So what should I do here? Getting rid of the Sneasler is my top priority. I think Tailwind plus Earthquake is somewhat reasonable. To be honest, like I might lose Mamoswine. I also have Ghost Terra on Mamoswine though. I think Tailwind plus Earthquake is pretty reasonable here. Sneasler Terras to Dark. I'm perfectly happy to get the Terra out here. Close combat hits Mamoswine, but thanks to the Focus Sash, I survive. I set Tailwind up, and Earthquake comes out and KOs Sneasler, despite the Terra. Indeedee finishes the turn off by KOing Mamoswine, but with Tailwind up and the Terra burnt, that turn definitely went in my favor. I send out Primarina as Shady sends out King Gambit. Now, I don't know if King Gambit is going to protect here, so I decide that the best thing I can do is to double attack the Indeedee, who very rarely carries Protect. Okay, he doesn't Protect. Oh, I need to Draco. I'm not going to KO. I didn't realize it could survive. Oh, it's so specially bulky. Oh my god, it's so specially bulky. That's not good. I got the flinch. I'm so lucky. Also, I think that's Poison Jab? If he poisons here, I think I lose off of that. But I got the flinch too, so like actually I like lose. No. Okay, I can still win this. I can genuinely still win this, but my position is really bad. It's Assault Vest. Losing Primarina to that poison means I only have Noivern, whose damage output you've just seen, and Venonat left to try and win this game. But despite things looking kind of bad, it's definitely not over, as long as Shady's final Pokemon is not Hisuian Braviary. I send out Venonat, and I need to get rid of this Indeedee. Indeedee goes for Follow Me, and Air Slash KOs. Now Sleep Powder can go into the Assault Vest King Gambit, putting it out of commission for at least this turn. King Gambit takes it to first turn of sleep. Okay, last Pokemon I'm gonna guess is Salamence here. It's Thwackey. Oh, it's Thwackey, okay? Thwackey goes for Fake Out, stopping Noivern from moving. He wakes up! Oh no. Okay, but Sucker Punch doesn't actually do that much damage, right? Hold on. I still have Nightshade, so I'm actually, oh, that's a lot, hold on. The problem is Tailwind ends this turn, so I Tailwind here to get around Sucker Punch and Sleep Powder again. This gives the Thwackey a free attacky. Here's the reason that I can still win this. Even though neither of my Pokemon are known for their offenses, they each have a move that does fixed damage. Noivern's Super Fang always does half of however much HP my opponent has left, and Venonat's Nightshade always does 50 damage flat. Eventually, they can work together to KO this King Gambit, and Noivern can Air Slash the Thwackey. I just need to buy myself a couple of turns to attack. I set Tailwind up and put King Gambit to sleep again, as Knockoff removes Venonat's Eviolite. I need to get rid of this King Gambit, so I double attack it. And this time, it stays asleep. Super Fang connects and Nightshade follows up. but Kingambit survives. The grassy terrain healed it out of range. Thwacky knockoff hits Noivern. Okay. Lose my Habenberry, I'm not having a good time anymore. Now, this looks like a winning position, but I do see a way that I can lose this. If I go for Nightshade, Kingambit could wake up and Sucker Punch my Venonat, who, having lost Eviolite, would take a ton of damage. But Sucker Punch would also do too much damage to my low HP Noivern if I go for Draco Meteor. It's a 50% chance that Kingambit wakes up, but I don't want either of my Pokemon to take a Sucker Punch. I'm trying to figure it out when I see a way around this. Venonat can Rage Powder, which will redirect Sucker Punch and cause it to fail. I go for it, and Kingambit stays asleep. But it did go for Sucker Punch, so my play made sense because, I mean, I didn't know if it was going to stay asleep or wake up. Noivern's Draco Meteor ends the Kingambit, is what I would have liked to say if it connected. But my 90% accurate move misses for what feels like the 10th time this league. Not to worry though, I get one more chance next turn. The same play will work again, assuming that Noivern connects. Last turn of Tailwind, last turn of Grass. Okay, I connect, please KO. Guys. Oh my god. I found the way to lose. I could have Terra Dark on my Venonat. I could have also just Nightshaded. I had so many... I had so many ways around it. Noivern, what? Dude, you are the worst of all time. Oh my god. Okay. GG. Okay. The tough thing there is that I could have won that, I think. That's the toughest thing I would say. That one stings a little, but the good news is that the matches are best 2 out of 3. So I'm not out of this set just yet. In game 2, it is very clear that I need to bring Arcanine. It's my strongest physical attacker against the Kingambit, who I now know can't protect itself because it's holding the Assault Vest. I think I need to respect Hisuian Braviary because I think if I'm him, that's what I'm doing in game 2. I really feel like I should bring Venonat, but I think in this, okay, initially my plan was to bring Venonat as the last Pokemon here, but I actually think there is a case to be made for Mamoswine. By the way, I want to call out something I think he did that was really cool is that he had Thwacky so he could use priority moves. Like Sucker Punch is actually what made things pretty difficult. It's Assault Vest Kingambit, so I think I need to bring my Mamoswine and save my Mamoswine this game. Both Arcanine and Mamoswine are good against Kingambit, especially if I can get something else in the team to Terra. And if Espathra passes boost to Primarina, it's quite strong as well. Overall, this feels like a balanced mode with good options across the board. This is my strongest lead in a Braviary lead, and I think I need to respect Braviary here because if I, based on what I did game 1, I think I could have a lot of trouble versus Braviary game 2. So I'm doing this. As the battle begins, I see that my instincts were right on the money. It's Indeedee and Braviary in the lead. My plan here is simple. Terra Psychic Braviary's Expanding Force will do a ton of damage, so I'm going to try and weaken it while setting up myself. Shady terastallizes Braviary to Psychic, getting it online. Indeedee goes for Follow Me as I combine with Espathra and go for Snarl with Arcanine. However, it's Covert Cloak. Okay, cool. Does Arcanine die to that? Barely. Wait, also I'm +1. That's not good. Here's the thing about Hisuian Braviary. It has the ability Tinted Lens. Tinted Lens is pretty simple to understand. If a move would do not very effective damage, double the damage that it deals. As you probably know, not very effective damage cuts the power of attacks in half. So unless both of your types resist, with Tinted Lens you end up doing neutral damage, not resisted. That's the reason why my Espathra took so much damage despite the Calm Mind. And because the Braviary didn't get a special attack drop, that means that I can't survive another one. Oh, chat, I think I'm actually just cooked. Wait, I think I'm in huge trouble here. Now my Espathra does not have Protect, which makes things really tough. I've got no choice but to just attack here. Indeedee goes for Follow Me as Arcanine goes for Flare Blitz, but it doesn't KO, and Arcanine knocks itself out thanks to the recoil damage. Espathra goes for a Substitute, but the little Rhydon doll is short-lived as Expanding Force explodes it. I go into Mamoswine and I see only one way back into this game. I think I have to Earthquake myself. With both Earthquake and my Espathra's Expanding Force, I should be able to KO their Braviary despite the Follow Me. Because I don't have Protect on Espathra, I can't go Protect plus Earthquake, so I think I'm actually in really major trouble here. I don't like this play. At all, for what it's worth. But I think I have to Earthquake myself. It's the only way I can see. He switches out. Okay, that's not good no matter what's coming in for me. Oh, he cut my Earthquake in half. Oh, he boomed me. Oh no, and in a worst case scenario here? Oh no, I'm gonna KO myself? That did a lot. I'm faster than the Braviary, which is good. But yeah, because he got the power on half, he survived. I didn't even think about that. He completely got me. Actually, no matter what happens here, I think I just lose. Expanding Force, I'm not taking this. Tell you that much. I think this is gonna be a 4-0. I don't think I'm killing him on here. He completely destroyed me. Down 2 against 4 with Focus Sash broken on Mamoswine, things are looking bleak. But it isn't over just yet. I protect Mamoswine, but Shady protects Braviary. Grassy Glide hits into the protect as I go for a Hyper Voice that does only a little bit of damage to the Thwacky. Grassy Terrain Healing confirms that his Braviary is faster than my Primarina, meaning my remaining outs are few and far between. The only chance I have is pretty straightforward, that my Mamoswine can KO the Thwacky with Terra Stellar Ice Shard before it can attack. The turn begins with my Terra. Ice Shard comes out and doesn't even come close to KOing. Thwacky goes for a Grassy Glide that KOs my Mamoswine, as Braviary goes for Tailwind. Primarina is the last to move, and it does KO both of Shady's Pokemon with Dazzling Gleam, but it's too little too late. Indeedee and Kingambit come back in. With Tailwind up and no way through Assault Vest Kingambit, this game is over. Psychic and Poison Jab KO Primarina, and that's it. The DC Parish lose to the New York Mankeys in a 0-2 series, putting the team at a record of 4 wins and 2 losses in the league, losing the #1 spot in the standings. As we enter the final week before the playoff teams are decided, it's a bad time to be on a losing streak, because our final opponent has a team where even a tiny misstep could quickly spell defeat. It's time to take on one of the most aggressive teams in the league, Coach Uzi Gunner and the Thunderclap Titans. Back-to-back losses, and the team is more demoralized than I've ever seen them. And that's a major problem because as the dust settles in the other Week 6 games, something unexpected takes shape. Somehow, despite the league being composed of players with a wide variety of experience using vastly different teams, the standings are neck and neck. This is the single most competitive draft league I have ever seen or been a part of. And while that's good for fans of the league, it is bad specifically for the DC Parish. Also, I have a slight cold. Sorry about that if I sound nasally. I thought that after winning 4 weeks in a row, the first 4 weeks, I would be guaranteed to make playoffs. There's 7 players, I beat over half of them. Surely that's enough to end up in playoffs. I figured that the last couple weeks I was just playing for seeding and for pride. But because of how close the league has gotten, that is just not the case. It is now possible that I could miss playoffs. In order to guarantee that I make it in, I need to win this final week. But Uzi's team is really scary. It's a hyper-offensive team that uses Whimsicott to set a Tailwind that I can't easily contest. To take advantage of that Tailwind, Uzi has 2 obvious threats: Dragapult and Hisuian Typhlosion. Dragapult outspeeds every single one of my Pokemon, even if it uses an attack boosting nature. To make matters worse, it can output massive damage on either the physical or the special side, making it difficult to prepare for. Hisuian Typhlosion needs either Tailwind or a Choice Scarf in order to get the speed advantage. But if it can attack first, it can do ridiculous spread damage thanks to Eruption. Whimsicott can boost the damage of both of these threats further by using Helping Hand, Tickle, or Fake Tears. Uzi has a number of other strong offensive threats like Gallade, Berserker, Malamar, and Araquanid. But my #1 focus this week is on stopping the 3 biggest threats. I need a Pokemon that can outspeed his Dragapult. Otherwise, Whimsicott and Dragapult can work together to KO any of my Pokemon before they can move. My plan is to use Choice Scarf Mamoswine in order to do this, with Knockoff as my primary attack to stop the Choice Band Terra Ghost set that I expect Uzi to bring. Next, I need to have consistent answers for Typhlosion, and my first option is going to be a bulky Arcanine with Snarl. Arcanine is great against many of the other threats on Uzi's team too, such as Gallade and Berserker. I need some speed control, and my best option is Trevenant's Trick Room. The issue is, Uzi has a number of ways to stop Trick Room, and I can't be sure that I'll actually be able to get it set up. So my Trevenant this week has a backup plan: Terra Dark Sucker Punch with Weakness Policy. This set can KO half of Uzi's Pokemon, but the obvious question is, how am I going to activate Weakness Policy before I use the priority move Sucker Punch? The answer is with my Vacuum Wave Assault Vest Thick Fat Hariyama, who is trained to be 1 point faster than my tree, so I can use the weak priority move Vacuum Wave before Trevenant uses Sucker Punch, setting up for a devastating combo that Uzi won't see coming. Hariyama also doubles as insurance against Typhlosion. Rounding out the team are Noivern and Primarina, as an alternative form of speed control and sweeping. These Pokemon are generally good in Uzi's team, and they also give me more help against Araquanid and Malamar, who could prove tricky for my other 4 Pokemon. As Uzi and I set up, I once again review which Pokemon I think he's gonna bring.
So what am I expecting? Whimsicott, Typhlosion, Dragapult, Araquanid, Gallade, Malamar, probably. Then the reveal. He has Tox, Whims, Araquanid, Berserker, Dragapult, and Gallade. So he does not have, he has everything I expected, but he has Toxtricity or Berserker over Typhlosion, basically. Importantly, Uzi's Dragapult is Terra Ghost, which is what I was expecting. And that means that all the plans I made for it should work against it without much adaptation needed. I already have a game plan here, which is Mamoswine, Arcanine, Hariyama, and Trevenant. I lock it in. Uzi leads with Dragapult and Gallade against my Arcanine and Mamoswine. Intimidate is stopped by Clear Body and Clear Amulet, which all but confirms that this Dragapult is a physical attacker. So in this position, I definitely just go for knockoff into Dragapult. I could technically go for Icicle Crash, but it's just riskier. But I think what I want to do here is actually just split the targets. Now, Icicle Crash could get the KO here, but if Uzi Terra's Dragapult, it could super backfire. Okay, I could have killed it with Icicle Crash. He's not bulky, and he has Choice Band. Okay. Because I removed the Choice Band, Dragon Darts doesn't do too much damage. But Gallade moves next, confirming that it's super fast, and it KOs Mamoswine. Arcanine finishes the turn by doing a ton to Gallade with Flare Blitz. Even though I lost a Pokemon, this turn went super in my favor, because both of Uzi's Pokemon are now low HP, and I have 2 priority moves. Extreme Speed KOs Gallade, and Sucker Punch KOs Dragapult. And just like that, I'm up 3 Pokemon left against 2. Uzi sends out his last 2 Pokemon. It is still possible for me to lose. I expect, oh, Whimsicott. That's not what I expected. And Berserker, okay. Interesting. I think that the best move here is Protect plus Switch into Hariyama. Even though Arcanine looks amazing here, there's no need to get greedy when I haven't confirmed what moves and items Uzi is running. By saving Arcanine, I can ensure that it will win later on. Unfortunately, Uzi punishes my passive play with Fake Out and Moonblast, doing half to Hariyama while I do 0 damage. I use Terra Dark to block Taunt and set up Trick Room. I'm in a really good position now, but the problem is that, like, to win the game, I might need to reveal my tech, right? I've already revealed Sucker Punch on Trevenant. Ideally, I would like to hide the fact that I have weakness policy on Trevenant, so that I can use it in game 2 for a sneaky KO. So I decide to take a risk and try and win the game without going for the safe side Vacuum Wave play. I switch to Arcanine and Protect, eating an Iron Head with Arcanine, which activates my Citrus Berry. Now it's time to attack. Wait, do I even KO Whimsicott if it's bulky? If it's like Covert Cloak? Here's the Terra. This should be Berserker. Maybe I should have saved my Arcanine. Like, I'm playing for the set win by hiding the weakness policy. Helping Hand from Whimsicott. Okay, that actually is a problem. Don't miss. Focus Sash. Oh, it is Sash. Did a lot. Arcanine, you live this. My goat. Arcanine, you flinch that. You are still my goat. I'm sorry. Okay, Poltergeist plus Flare Blitz. Seems good. I'm still in great shape because I did a lot of damage and I've hidden the weakness policy tech, which is what I was hoping for. Protect from Berserker, okay. I go for Flare Blitz. This should KO. Surely this KOs. Did I make a mistake? Hold on a second, because now there's only 1 turn left of Trick Room. Hold on a second. I have to take a super effective hit here. I may have actually made a mistake. But I knocked myself out with Recoil. Okay, I survived. I would have lived a crit as well. All right, well, I tried to hide the tech, and in the end, I didn't even hide it. Well, so much for that. Fortunately, I do have a guaranteed win now. Berserker goes for a double protect and it gets it, but Seismic Toss KOs Whimsicott. And now there is no getting around Sucker Punch. I win game 1. One more game and I've locked my spot in playoffs. Just one more. But picking the right Pokemon is easier said than done. I deliberate until the last second and change my mind right at the end as my timer approaches 0. Uzi leads with Berserker and Gallade. I know that going for Poltergeist here is probably a little weird looking. The thing is though that he could go for Imprison or Taunt, and I don't know like what he wants to do. So I'm gonna Fake Out Berserker. Okay, goes for Fake Out, good move. It's a lot of damage, flinches me. Psycho gets into Tree, gets a crit. That actually could be game losing, fun fact. Because I'm gonna get the KO here, but now I can't go for the Vacuum Wave Sucker. Wait, can I go for it? Do I survive at 20 HP left? I don't. So thanks to the crit, my main strategy is off the table. Uzi sends out Whimsicott. Okay, I think what I do here is I just go for Sucker Punch into Berserker and I don't have Arcanine in the back. Oh, wait, this is not fine. My last second pivot into Noivern comes back to bite, as I find myself with no clear switch in to the threats in front of me. I Sucker Punch Berserker to break the sash as Uzi KOs my Trevenant with Moonblast. Iron Head hits Hariyama. Does a lot of damage. dude, are you? Oh my god, that's real bad. Okay. Because I couldn't hit the Whimsicott, I am falling behind fast. I go into Primarina. I terrestrialize Primarina to steal as Berserker protects. I guess he's just going after my Hari, which makes sense. I survive. My Hariyama is insane. Okay, hang on. We're back. We're actually back. Hyper Voice activates my Throat Spray, powering Primarina up, and Seismic Toss hits Whimsicott. If I hadn't flinched, I could go for Hyper Voice to get both KOs here. But because I lost out in the damage that turn, I feel like I need to make a play this turn to stop Dragapult from sweeping me when it hits the field. Moonblast KOs Hariyama as Iron Head hits Primarina, but I go for a substitute. I protect Primarina as Whimsicott taunts Noivern. Air Slash KOs Whimsicott. If he Iron Heads into Primarina, then I made the right move. I could have won this game. Oh my god. Okay, hang on a second. It depends on what the last one is, because you might have Araquanid. I've been playing as if it's Dragapult. It is Dragapult. I made a mistake. I made a big mistake. If I'd attacked with Primarina, I'd have won for sure, but I thought there was no way he would let the substitute survive. Now, with Dragapult as the last and 2 Pokemon still alive, things are looking bleak. Dragapult terrestrializes and KOs Noivern as Berserker breaks my substitute. I KO Berserker, but Primarina can't survive a Dragapult hit, and I lose game 2. It's all down to game 3. The only way to guarantee that I make playoffs is to win right here, right now. And in order to win, I need to pick the right Pokemon. I know that I need Arcanine. Not having it for Berserker just made things too difficult. I also need Primarina, or else I'm gonna lose to the Araquanid. With 2 slots left, I decide to once again go with my main strategy. And this time to finally reveal the weakness policy Vacuum Wave tech that I've been saving. But Uzi starts with a new lead of Whimsicott and Dragapult, and I start to second guess myself. I want to go for the Terra Dark side Vacuum Wave and Sucker Punch play to just get rid of the Dragapult right away, but the problem is if he switches Dragapult out and goes for like a Moonblast, I will do 0 damage and I'll take a bunch in return. I can't figure out a safe way around this as my timer gets lower and lower, and with only 5 seconds left, I feel like I have to commit. I don't like this. That's really bad. That is really bad. I really overthought it. I could have just gone for Sucker Punch. I really could have just gone for Sucker Punch. Honestly, even Protect was okay. Helping Hand. Dragon Darts, maybe? Copium? Oh my god. Oh my god. I could have just... Okay, it's fine. It's actually not fine. I think I'm probably going to lose this game almost certainly now. I gave up my Terra for literally nothing. And I have a Hari... I should have just gone for it. I really overthought it. Like, he didn't know about Vacuum Wave. He would have run the calc. Listen, I've had a couple bad turn 1s in this league before, but this one is truly unrecoverable. The problem is that with my back Pokemon, I have no speed control. So there's no way for me to beat Terra Ghost Choice Band Dragapult at the end of the battle. That being said, I still have to try. My season could be on the line here. Uzi sends out Araquanid, who takes the knockoff, losing its Assault Vest. I go into Primarina to replace my fainted Trevenant. Uzi sets up Tailwind and uses Liquidation into my Hariyama. That does too much damage. Hyper Voice gives me a special attack boost as Seismic Toss drops Araquanid lower. If I'm going to win this game, the first step is to KO both of Uzi's Pokemon at the same time. I switch Hariyama to Arcanine, who takes a Liquidation, as Primarina Hyper Voice puts Araquanid into red HP. Now I can go for the double KO. Extreme Speed finishes off Araquanid as Arcanine survives a Moonblast. Primarina KOs Whimsicott, and at least for the moment, I find myself with the Pokemon lead. But now Dragapult comes back in, and things look dire. However, I do have one way left to win. Oh, it's actually not a guaranteed KO. Hold on a second. I didn't realize it wasn't guaranteed. I assumed that my Primarina would faint to Terra Ghost, Terra Blast, but because I've got some bulk, there's a decent chance that I can survive. Assuming that I do survive, I can go for a Moonblast. And thanks to the special attack boost I got from Hyper Voice, I will still KO Dragapult. It was looking doomed, but there is still one way back in. The last turn comes down to not Arcanine or Gallade, but Primarina and Dragapult. Which one will survive? I mean, ideally he would have hit the other slot. I survive. I die. Okay, well, yeah, now there's nothing to do. I mean, the thing is, if he doubled it, I would have lost regardless. Gallade KOs Hariyama, and with just Arcanine left, I've got no chance at victory. For the 3rd week in a row, the DC Parish suffer defeat, and our playoff chances now depend entirely on the remaining 3 matches this week. In order for me to miss playoffs, every single other match has to go one specific way. First, Mount has to beat Nekkra by any margin. Second, Cybertron has to beat James Beck. And third, Joey has to beat Shady exactly 2-0. If Shady takes a single game, I am in. First to play are Nekkra and Mount. And Mount has been on a hot streak. After starting the league with 0 wins and 3 losses, he's completely turned things around with 3 back-to-back wins.
And if he beats Nekkra, he is guaranteed to make playoffs. Both mine and Mount's season could hedge on this match, and when the dust settles, there is one clear winner. With the score of 2 wins to 0, Nekkra defeats Mount, and guarantees that the DC Parish will be moving on to the playoffs. As fate would have it, the other 2 matches also went the way that I needed them to. James beat Aaron, and while Joey did beat Shady, Shady took a game and ensured that Joey couldn't pass me. So, despite 3 back-to-back defeats, the DC Parish secure the 2nd seed in the playoffs. At this point, only 4 teams remain, and a loss means that your tournament ends. And that is a problem, because my opponent that I'll be facing in the semifinals is the same one that I had to face in week 1. For the 2nd time this season, I need to take down the king of Draft League. Making playoffs should be cause for celebration. It's the culmination of nearly 2 months of hard work. And yet, it doesn't feel celebratory off the back of 3 consecutive losses. And I'm sorry to report that it isn't only the team that's feeling demoralized, it's also me, the coach. Losing in Draft League feels really, really bad in a way that's kind of unique. I think it's because you know all the Pokemon that your opponent has. Losing feels personal in a way that losing at an official tournament doesn't. Like, I knew what was coming, but I still lost. And I don't think that I've ever lost 3 rounds in a row in a Draft League before. And I'll tell you that if losing once feels personal, losing 3 times feels like a condemnation. I have to snap out of it if I want to turn things around, because Joey in the semifinals is not an opponent you can afford to face at below 100%. The first step to winning is to figure out what went wrong the last 3 weeks. And I think that there are 2 clear factors. First, I do not think that I've been using my Pokemon to their full potential. Like, I keep using defensive sets on my Noivern, and I keep knocking out my Arcanine with recoil damage before it can really take over the game. I keep using these silly Espathra sets that ultimately just aren't good enough. And the second thing is the out-of-game stuff, the prep work. Being transparent, my schedule has been super busy. I had to play Aaron and Shady on back-to-back days after being out of town for 4 days, and I played Uzi after a similar out-of-town trip where I came back sick. Draft League is not the kind of format where you can afford to phone it in. And so, over the week of prep time that I have to face Joey, I'll invest nearly 20 hours to getting ready. My prep document is 9 pages long, double the length of any other one that I've done. Those are all up on the Patreon if you're curious. But there's also another problem, and that's my team itself. Demoralized doesn't begin to cut it. They are devastated. If my Pokemon don't believe they can win, this battle is doomed before it even starts. I'm the coach, but what can I do? Nearly every Pokemon I drafted has been present for at least one of the losses, and some of them have been present for all 3. Nearly every Pokemon. What this team needs now is a hero. A Pokemon to turn the tide. A Pokemon that's been eager for a chance to get back on the battlefield. A Pokemon that hasn't lost a single set, let alone a single game this entire season. A Pokemon that I foolishly did not draft, but instead picked up during free agency. The hope and the spirit of the team, it is time for the return of Hisuian Sliggoo. This is the one Pokemon that I didn't have when I faced Joey last time. But last time I faced Joey, half of his team was totally different. Joey has dropped Meowstic for Comfey, Riolu for Hisuian Sneasel, Rhyperior for Rhydon, Zebstrika for Jolteon, Alama for Lapras, and Poltergeist for Chimecho. Not only is this literally half of his roster, it's half the Pokemon that he brought against me when we played in week 1. Even though this is technically a rematch, it sure doesn't feel like it. Joey's 3 biggest threats are, unfortunately, unchanged. Pelipper sets up the rain, enabling the behemoths that are Caledon and Basculegion. As you already know, these Pokemon are dangerous in different ways. Basculegion threatens to outspeed and one-hit KO my entire team, while our Caledon is nearly impossible to remove, becomes stronger by using Electro Shot, and becomes tankier every single time it gets hit. Basculegion is the single biggest threat to my team due to its ghost typing and my 0 ghost resistances. The best way to beat Basculegion is to outspeed it and KO it before it can move. But with good bulk and doubled speed in the rain, this looks impossible. But actually, I do have one Pokemon that can move before the fish. Choice Scarf Noivern. I've been using Noivern as this defensive tailwind setter, but that's not the only thing that it can do. With a Choice Scarf, it can function as an offensive threat, moving before Basculegion, but then what? Noivern surely can't one-hit KO this evil fish. Even Dragon Terra Draco Meteor falls short, and it doesn't get a stronger move than that. But Noivern has another source of damage from its partner. The second Pokemon coming to the battle this week is Helping Hand Espathra. I've been using Espathra as like this setup baton passer and as this dual screen setter, but this week we're not doing anything so convoluted. Espathra does need 2 speed boosts to move before Basculegion, unless it's using the priority move Helping Hand. Helping Hand, Dragon Terra, Draco Meteor will KO almost all Basculegion, but Espathra can do even more. With Sunny Day, Espathra can disrupt Joey's rain strategy, and with Lumina Crash, it can set up the team's special attackers to do tons of bonus damage. Focus Sash ensures that I can live a hit from Basculegion before I outspeed it, letting me attack without fear on the first turn. Here, however, is where I get stuck. Imagine a situation where Joey leads Pelipper and Basculegion against my Espathra and Noivern, and let's say that the turn 1 goes perfectly. I go for Helping Hand, Dragon Terra, Draco Meteor, and I KO Basculegion before it can attack, while Pelipper goes for a Tailwind. This seems great, like I got a Pokemon for free. But then you think about how now Archaludon gets to come in inside of Tailwind. And I have Noivern at -2 and an Espathra who can't do much to Archaludon on its own. And the real problem is that there's almost no Pokemon on my team that can safely switch in against Electroshot and a move from Pelipper. Thinking it through, I'm just about ready to give up on this lead and try and find another way that I can win. But that's when Zane points out something that I missed. I do have one Pokemon that can switch in against these two monster threats, and its name is Big Slig. Thanks to its absurd special bulk and great typing, Hisuian Sliggoo resists both of Pelipper's moves and Electroshot. Even better, Sliggoo threatens Joey's team offensively. Thunderbolt one-hit KOs Pelipper and does a ton to Basculegion, Greninja, and Lapras, while Flash Cannon hits Comfey and Rhydon for super effective damage. Only Sneasel and Rhydon can hit Sliggoo back for super effective stab damage, making it very difficult for Joey to remove, and meaning it's an excellent Pokemon to stall Tailwind and combo with Lumina Crash from Espathra. I'll go with Ghost Terra to flip the relationship with Sneasel and Body Press Archaludon on its head, which is useful in a pinch as well. There is one major problem with Sliggoo. Due to the role that it fills on the team, I don't think I can justify bringing both it and Primarina. They just do things that are way too similar in that they're slow, bulky Trick Room sweepers. And at first glance, this seems like an absurd thing to say. Like, I've brought Primarina to literally every single set that I've played, and it has more KOs than any other Pokemon in the league. Also, it resists water moves, and Joey doesn't have a single fairy resistant on his team. Am I actually gonna leave it behind? I know it's shocking, but here's the truth. In this matchup, Sliggoo is better. At least, that's what I'm gonna gamble on. The team needs way more for Archaludon, and I have a clear answer. Trevenant. Last time, Trevenant lost to the Big Bridge, but this time, I'm running a different set. Trevenant gets Haze, which resets all stat boosts and stat drops. If Joey tries to use Archaludon as a setup threat, Trevenant can take it all away in an instant. With its Ghost typing, it is immune to Body Press, and with its Grass typing, it also resists Electroshot, making it difficult for Archaludon to remove before we even factor in the infinite healing of Harvest and Citrus Berry. Trevenant has more use than just beating Archaludon though. If it can set up Trick Room, it can not only do huge damage with Poltergeist, revealing Joey's items in the process, but it can also enable Sliggoo to become a terrifying sweeper. As extra insurance against Basculegion, I'm going with Terra Normal on the tree. The 5th slot on the team is Flame Orb Hariyama, with a standard offensive set. Hariyama can do huge damage if I want to go with a mode with Trick Room up front, but I can only pull this off if Joey doesn't respect it in team building. It's a gamble, but it's a gamble that can win me the game right away if I get it right. Or I guess more aptly if Joey gets it wrong. With only one slot left on the team, I have a few options. Primarina is the best Pokemon in a vacuum, but I've already decided that it's too similar to Sliggoo. Glimmora has amazing offensive coverage, but because it's weak to water, it's a bit of a liability. Venonat can be good, but Joey paid it so much respect last time that I don't want to bring it again, since it ended up real close to being a liability. Mamoswine is strong offensively, but I don't have the speed support for it this week, and the Focus Sash is already taken. But that just leaves my first pick, Arcanine, who I didn't even bring when we played week 1 because I thought it looked so rough here. But I've grown a lot over the last 7 weeks. I've learned more about my Pokemon, more about their potential. And as I look upon Arcanine with more experienced eyes, I see things that I didn't see before. I see a set that, if I'm seeing things correctly, could shut down Joey's entire team, but it is a risk. This Arcanine set will completely punt on offense, and it means that I'm bringing a Fire-type Pokemon into a team with 4 different Water types and Rain. That's a big gamble to take with elimination on the line, and I'm genuinely not sure that it's worth it. But to figure it out, I can do something that I haven't done for the entire duration of this league in order to figure it out, which is to play a practice battle. This is the standard way that most people will prep in draft leagues, but I don't like them under normal circumstances, because I feel like they can do more harm than good for me specifically. Here though, I need to test my Arcanine theory. So I play 2 mock battles, one against Zane, who's been helping me build every week, and one against Aaron Cybertron Zhang. He was unfortunately eliminated at 5th place from the tournament, and I text him at 7 PM the night before my match, but he puts aside what he's doing and he builds a team to face me. After the mock battles, I've got no more doubt. this Arcanine can do it. And with that, I am all out of prep time. All that I can do now is play. For what could be the final time this season, I connect with my opponent and see which Pokemon he's decided to bring. Okay, so he doesn't have Rhydon. He left Rhydon behind. Oh my god. Okay, cool. Joey has 5 of the Pokemon that I expected, but he's got Hisui and Sneasel in place of Rhydon. This is a massive deal because Rhydon is his single best Pokemon against Slagoo. Without it, my Trick Room mode becomes even more potent. I need to get my Pokemon ready. So game 1 plan is simple enough. The Sneasel most likely has Taunt. The battle begins. Basculegion and Sneasel. Got it. And I have a Spothra and Noivern. Leftovers Basculegion and Eviolite Sneasel. Now, because the Sneasel could use Fake Out, I cannot go for my Helping Hand, Dragon Terra, Draco Meteor play here. I also can't protect Noivern because I'm Choice Scarfed and also I don't have Protect. And there's one move that I'm a bit afraid of on the Basculegion. So Leftovers to me implies that he has Substitute. I might not be able to KO Basculegion, but I can limit its options. Here's the Terra. There's going to be Sneasel most likely. It is. It terastallizes to Steel. I protect a Spothra to preserve the Focus Sash and switcheroo the Basculegion, giving it the Choice Scarf. To my surprise, Basculegion goes for Phantom Force, vanishing from the battlefield, and all but confirming it doesn't have its signature move, Last Respects. Okay, technically it's not a signature move, sorry, but it feels like it, okay? Lastly, Sneasel goes for a Taunt, which is blocked by a Spothra's Protect. Now, like I said, I don't have a Ghost Resistance, so there's no way for me to switch into this Phantom Force. Instead, I decide to attack, using Lumina Crash to lower Sneasel's special defense, and then Dragon Pulse for some okay damage. It doesn't look like much, but it will add up. I reveal that Sneasel is slower than my Noivern, even after I've tricked away the Choice Scarf, as Joey doubles the Spothra for the KO. But that gives me a free switch into the tree, and Basculegion cannot do any damage this turn, and I see a way to gain a ton of ground. You know, do I think Draco Meteor KOs from here? I think it probably does. I'm gonna go Trick Room and Draco Meteor here. I do think I want Trick Room up. I think Trick Room plus Draco Meteor feels pretty good to me. The Basculegion can now no longer protect itself. That really sucks. Okay. Okay. That's a huge miss. With the season on the line, Noivern once again misses Draco Meteor, and everything snowballs out of control. Sneasel surviving means that I'm not able to get Trick Room up, which in turn means that Slagoo no longer has offensive pressure in the way that I need. The game isn't over, but it just got way harder. I'm forced to Terra Trevenant to normal to survive a potential Phantom Force. If I go normal Terra here, that is just an unbelievable miss. If I go normal Terra here, I might have trouble versus the Archaludon. Then again, I think I have to. That sucks just so much. It's okay. There's no need tilting, no point tilting. There's also a chance that Draco doesn't KO. I think it will though, based on how much Dragon Pulse did. Okay, Noivern connects this time. Yeah, if that had happened last turn, this game is like so much easier. That being said, it's not over yet. It's just looking pretty bad. To my surprise, Basculegion targeted Noivern, not Trevenant, meaning I terastallized for nothing. On the upside, Poltergeist picks up a one-hit KO on Basculegion, which I was not expecting. At least for now, I am up 3 Pokemon left against 2. Joey sends out his last 2 Pokemon, Pelipper and Archaludon. But before I can make a move, disaster strikes. I dropped my Joy-Con? Oh no, I dropped my Joy-Con. Oh no, I can't, wait, where is it? I can't see it. Oh, here it is. Okay, it still works. And somehow, when getting back into my seat, my chair gets caught on the microphone base and starts pulling it into the setup, threatening to fall. Dude, what is going on? Dude! I can't, my whole setup is breaking. Okay, let's calm down. I Hurricane Pelipper for sure here. And then, after fixing my microphone, my chair somehow gets caught on the green screen behind me. Okay. I have never had this happen in my life. Hurricane confused? Okay, good. Pelipper is faster than Archaludon. Weather Ball comes out, that's okay. Slagoo tanks this. No question. Electro Shot. This is probably into my Slig. Yeah. This looks like a good turn, but in actuality, it isn't. Because I never got Trick Room up and was forced to terastallize to normal, I don't have an easy way of hazing away the Archaludon boosts before it KOs my Trevenant. If I can get rid of the boost, I'll be okay, but that's not looking easy. I need to take a gamble.
This might not work. If I lose the game, it's going to be on this turn. I'm a little bit flustered, as you can tell. Can't believe my setup is just breaking.
Pelipper snaps out of confusion and protects, which is not what I wanted to see. Trevenant takes an electro shot, and this seals the game.
I think I lose this game, unfortunately.
The problem is, now Trevenant has taken too much damage, and can no longer survive another hit to go for a Trick Room or Haze. I protect Trevenant as Pelipper goes for Tailwind, and our Caledon electro shots into the protect, which lets Sliggoo KO Pelipper. I'm up 3 against 1, but it's not enough. Not that I don't try. I switch Trevenant to Noivern, sacrificing it to a now +4 electro shot and confirming that our Caledon is Assault Vest. Sliggoo Dragon Pulse does almost nothing, as I'm forced back into Trevenant. My only hope now is that Joey makes a major mistake, and hard reads a protect as I get up Trick Room. This would then let me Haze and maybe solo the Arcaledon.
I think I have to Trick Room here. Yeah. It wasn't like a play that I thought was super likely to win, but I needed to go into tree, right? Yeah, missing Draco Meteor cost me the game, which is just typical. That being said, I learned some information about what he's using. Unfortunately, my 1-point Steel and Dragon type cannot beat Joey's 20-point +5 Steel and Dragon type, and I lose game 1. I am now 1 game away from losing 4 weeks in a row for elimination. This could be my last game of the season. I need to figure out what to do. Against Taunt Inner Focus Sneasel, I don't think that I can bring Hariyama. But then, which Pokemon should I bring? I know it looks bad, but I'm gonna run it back. Arcanine plus Noivern could work as well, because of the specific sets that he has. I'm gonna do Arcanine Noivern. It's not what I planned to do, but I think it's okay. Game 2 begins with an adjustment from Joey as well. Our Caledon and Pelipper are staring down my Arcanine and Noivern. I have 2 good options here. I can switcheroo our Caledon, giving it the Scarf and taking away the Assault Vest, but I realize something. Joey is going to attack with Pelipper here, because if he protects, the risk of me doubling his Arcaledon is way too high. Knowing this, I can go after it and try and remove his weather on the very first turn. This time, Draco Meteor connects, and it drops Pelipper down to Focus Sash, and I get to reveal the first of my Arcanine's moves, Snarl. This KOs Pelipper and drops Arcaledon's special attack, though it brings it right back up with Electroshot. Electroshot, I could have Sunny Day'd. Okay, going to Noivern, that's better for me. That's a lot better for me. Okay, so he's neutral. Joey sends out Basculegion to replace the fainted Pelipper. Noivern's at -2, so I do need to switch it out. And because Joey has revealed Phantom Force, I know that he probably doesn't have Last Respects. What that means is that I can safely bring Trevenant in without worrying too much this turn. What happens next though, I would never have predicted. He's not Swift Swim. Oh my god, Liquidation? Okay. And he's locked into Electroshot now, all right? He's not Swift Swim, he's Adaptability.
Because Joey has gone for an ability that boosts his damage rather than his speed, my Arcanine outspeeds it. And with my second Disruption move, it steals control of the weather. With Pelipper down, he's not getting that back. And between the Sun and my defensive Pasho Berry item, Basculegion did pitiful damage. And now my position looks incredible. It's time to reveal my third and final Disruption move on Arcanine. Will-O-Wisp connects, burning Basculegion before it can attack, cutting its power in half for the rest of the game before it can disappear with Phantom Force.
Phantom Force, okay. I don't care anymore. Don't care. Electroshot into tree, I'm still in it. Oh, and Arc, I'm dead. Oh, I'm alive. Okay, and Trick Room goes up, that's the help of Pasho Berry, okay. So he's +1, right?
With Trick Room finally up, I am in control. I remove the stat boosts as our Caledon goes for a Snarl, lowering my special attack, and Phantom Force hits Sliggoo. I've taken some damage, but that's okay, because the final move on my Sliggoo isn't Protect.
Okay, no Protect again. Go back to full on tree. Please connect, it's 90% accurate. Okay, this should KO because it KO'd in game 1 and now it has less HP. Okay, he goes for Snarl again. It doesn't seem like he has a great way to damage my tree here. Snarl, Electroshot, Dragon Pulse, Comfey. Oh, okay.
Comfey being the last Pokemon is scary because it can keep Joey's Arcaledon alive. But as of right now, I haven't even really damaged the bridge. And what that means is I can focus down the flower first. Joey tears to grass as I heal up with Life Dew and reset the Snarl drops with Haze. Snarl drops my special attack again as Comfey reverses Trick Room. Comfey reveals Encore, forcing me to Haze again. But Dragon Pulse does a good bit of damage to the now grass type Comfey.
Once Comfey goes down, I think Trevenant wins the game.
To get out of the Encore, I switch Trevenant to Arcanine. Comfey Encores Sliggoo as our Caledon Dragon Pulses Sliggoo. But because of the ridiculous natural bulk of Sliggoo, I take it comfortably. Comfey is getting low, but can I actually get rid of it? Draining Kiss KOs Arcanine, as Dragon Pulse does even more to Sliggoo. Please KO Sliggoo, just end this game for me, please. If it's like I have Papa Berry, okay, it's not. Comfey goes for another Draining Kiss, but Sliggoo takes basically nothing, and it even survives the Dragon Pulse after. Trevenant finally KOs Comfey, as Dragon Pulse hits Archaludon, which just lost its only source of recovery. Because I don't think Archaludon should ever beat Trevenant. I see the way to win. All I need to do is sacrifice Sliggoo and go for another Poltergeist. Then I can bring in Noivern, launch a Terra Dragon Dragon Pulse that cannot miss, and close the game out with my Haze Harvest Trevenant. I make the play. Now he's +2 defense. Okay. I haven't seen his last move yet. I'm doing good damage though. Okay. Okay, let me talk to Joey. As it turns out, Joey accidentally kicked his Switch, and it caused the game to disconnect.
Terra Dragon Dracos. Oh no, my Switch. Oh shoot. Oh no. No. I'm gonna give that to Wolfie. I'm pretty positive he wins that game with Draco plus that. Oh my god, I kicked my Switch. I'm so sorry. All right, so we're going to game 3. My bad. I kicked my Switch. I'm so sorry.
So despite an anticlimactic ending, we are going to game 3. We reconnect, and I think about what I learned. So the important piece of information to me there is that his Basculegion is adaptability. He's gonna play around Arch again. Truthfully, breaking through the Comfey was kind of annoying, and it is Snarl Arch, so I guess the question becomes, do I bring Hariyama here? Sliggoo is good against Pelipper, but it's not doing that well into the Archaludon. Like, I'm kind of losing the damage trade. That being said, Sliggoo is still doing well. When I saw this team, I kind of felt like I wasn't gonna bring my Hariyama, but now I'm thinking maybe I need it to beat the Archaludon, because the Basculegion, okay, first of all, I think Arcanine is better than Espathra, and I think Noivern's pretty good here too, and I think Trevenant always comes in the back, so the only question is the final Pokemon. I didn't reveal Protect on Arcanine, which is good. It's Snarl Archaludon, I didn't see Body Press, then again, it could have it. I'm gonna do Slig. I think that Sliggoo is like, my instinct says it should be Sliggoo, and even though Hariyama is better against, like, would have been better against that Archaludon Comfey endgame, honestly, I'm not even sure if that's true. With my season on the line, on the brink of elimination, I commit. I'm betting everything on Sliggoo once more. The battle begins. I expect Sneasel again, yeah? This position is tricky. First of all, I don't even know if Sneasel has Fake Out. I've only seen 2 of the moves. Now, I would like to Hurricane the Sneasel and KO it, because Taunt is really annoying for my Haze Trick Room Trevenant, as we saw in game 1. But if Sneasel Terras to Steel, Hurricane's not going to do any damage, and it's also only 70% accurate until Joey sets up the rain. With my timer ticking down, I decide to take a gamble, and try and stop Sneasel regardless of whether or not it Terras. Here's the Terra. Okay, I didn't want to go for Hurricane because I was pretty sure he was going to Terra. I think he's going for Taunt here, but I still think it's worth it for me to lock him into it, because if I lock him into Taunt, it means it can't really easily beat Slag. Okay, he has Protect! Hello? Is he coaching? I'm Eviolite Noivern! I'm so bulky. He Scarf Sneasel now, and he whatever he uses, he's stuck into. Coaching, okay. That's okay though. The thing about coaching here is that he gets to +0 and he'll be at +1 next turn, but I still get the burn up. Sneasel is now in a really awkward spot. If it could Taunt this turn, it could stop my Arcanine from burning Basculegion. But because it's locked into coaching, all it can do is go for it again. And that means letting Basculegion get burnt and take a hit from Noivern as well. Joey knows that he cannot let that happen. +1 defense is what I gotta watch out for, but that's part of the reason why Dragon Pulse damage is actually pretty nice here. He switches Sneasel out, so he's +1 Death into Pelly, okay. That's all right, he's gonna get a damage boost. Now I have Hurricane online though. Oh, he double switches. Oh, that's interesting. Into Archaludon, okay. So he has burned Archaludon. I've seen all 4 Mons. I hit Will-O-Wisp. That's actually important because it means that number 1, I don't have to worry about Body Press, so I don't actually have to haze anything. The other reason the burn matters is because unlike last game, Joey's left Comfey behind. And that means all damage on this Archaludon is permanent. Burn doesn't do much damage per turn, but it does add up over the course of a battle. And with the healing that I have on Sliggoo and Trevenant, this Archaludon is now always going to lose a war of attrition. My position is still exceptional here, but this turn is hard. I've already shown that Draco Meteor and Snarl can KO Pelipper, but Joey has shown Protect. And I don't want to double Pelipper and then end up taking hit from Archaludon and start losing the game. I decide to find a middle ground safe play. I switch Noivern to Sliggoo as Archaludon goes out into Basculegion. Snarl hits Pelipper, breaking the Focus Sash and dropping it to -1 special attack. But Joey goes for Tailwind. Now, his Vasculegion will actually outspeed my whole team. And without the Choice Scarf on Noivern, I can no longer stop it. So I need to stall out the rest of this Tailwind. I definitely want to save my Arcanine. I think I just Thunderbolt Pelipper here. Is that wrong? Yeah, that was wrong. I should have Thunderbolted Bask. Sneasel? Okay, Sneasel comes back in. Tree comes back in. He does have sub. Okay, that makes sense. Doesn't do much damage. Okay, this is where I need to slow down because now the Vasculegion's a little annoying with both Tailwind up and like my position is overall quite good. Vasculegion behind a substitute in Tailwind in the rain. That is very, very scary. I need to break the substitute so Arcanine can intimidate it. I can't do it this turn though because Vasculegion is gonna vanish from the battlefield. So I decide to try and take out Sneasel. Coaching, oh, that's not good. Okay, the thing is, it's only bad if Phantom Force won't work. Wait, I can KO it. Oh wait, I looked at my Noivern. I'm pretty sure it's going after Noivern. I hope this doesn't KO. It shouldn't KO, right? It might. Trevenant's pretty strong. It's actually a really bad KO. It looked like it looked at Noivern, but I couldn't really tell. Now, I can't remember if Phantom Force shows you the target when the Pokemon vanishes. I think it's targeting Noivern, but if I'm wrong, I will lose on the spot. Joey sends out Archaludon to replace the fainted Sneasel. I cannot afford to lose Trevenant here. I Terrastalize. Yeah. KOs, okay. So really bad Terra on my part. Like potential game losing Terra. Probably goes for Electroshot as well. Yeah, that was a really bad Terra on my part. Hopefully Rain ends this turn. Like, was it set up? I haven't KO'd anything, so it must have been set up one turn before Tailwind. So I think it ends this turn. There's a lot. It's not ideal. Please don't miss. Okay. Rain ends this turn. I've used my Terra for kind of nothing. Slugoo can win this game because if I can Thunderbolt stuff, I will win. Rain ends. That's really good. Tailwind ends too. I am very, very close to winning, but I'm also very, very close to losing. If Trevenant gets Trick Room up, I will win. And Arcanine is here to be a bodyguard. But Arcanine can only weaken one of Vasculegion and Archaludon. And if Trevenant faints to a double up, I will lose this game. I can Snarl to weaken Archaludon, Sunny Day to weaken Vasculegion, or Will-O-Wisp to weaken Vasculegion more effectively, but with a chance to miss. What should I do? In the 45 seconds I have, I realize something. Joey knows that if Trick Room goes up, he will lose. So he has to bet everything on KOing my tree this turn. And knowing this, I can punish it by playing defensive with Trevenant and buying Arcanine one extra turn to slow Joey down. Joey switches Archaludon to Pelipper. He didn't protect. Arcanine, please, please, please show us why you're the first pick. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I'm so close to winning this game. I am so close. Oh, okay. Okay, I need to slow down now. The question becomes, he can't KO Trevenant. There's no way he can KO Trevenant, right? Because I go Sunny Day, he's burnt. Because Vasculegion doesn't have Swift Swim, Sunny Day will move before it can attack. And because I've Terrastalized to normal, the only move the Vasculegion has that can damage my Trevenant is Liquidation, which burned and in the sun is not going to be doing much. Sunny Day not only turns Pelipper's Weather Ball into a fire move, which decreases its power because Pelipper is not a fire type, it also cuts the accuracy of Hurricane down from 100% to 50%. And I have trained my Trevenant to always survive a Hurricane before I Terrastalize. So even if Joey hits a Hurricane with 50% accuracy, as long as I'm above half HP, Trevenant will survive because I've Terrastalized. Okay, sun is up. I've got 5 turns now. He goes Tailwind! He went Tailwind! Liquidation into my arc, okay? Does nothing, and Trick Room is up. It's not over yet, but that turn could not have gone better. Now we need to figure out how to close this one out. If I go Poltergeist into Vasculegion and Snarl, the other option is to get Slugoo in here. Poltergeist pressures the Vasculegion pretty hard, and I could Snarl to cover an Archaludon switch, but then I don't do anything to Pelipper. I decide that getting rid of Vasculegion is my #1 priority. And I'm rewarded because Joey switches Pelipper out into Archaludon. I drop Archaludon's special attack. Oh, please hit! Oh my god. It lived that time? What? Arcanine? Oh my god, my Arcanine is clutched up. Crit the Archaludon doesn't really matter. And now I'm actually able to use the Tailwind that Joey set up against him because I can Sunny Day even though my Arcanine outspeeds both these Pokemon. Because of the Tailwind, I'm able to Sunny Day before he attacks. And his Archaludon's at -1 special attack and burnt. And with Sligoo still in the back and his Pokemon burnt, I don't see how he's breaking through Big Slig. Sligoo comes in as I set Sun up once again. Sligoo comes in. Sligoo is really hard to break, especially if you're -1 Archaludon. And I have Life Dew to keep Arcanine healthy, and I can keep spamming Snarl. Here's Dragon Pulse, but it's -1. He needs a crit. He can't crit, I have Shell Armor! He can't crit me! That did a lot, never mind, he doesn't need a crit. Now, one of the weaknesses of using a strategy that drops your opponent's stats, like Snarl, is that if they ever crit, all of the stat drops you've given them are ignored. But my Sligoo this week has the ability Shell Armor, which prevents it from ever getting critical hit. In other words, Joey's only way through Sligoo is the old-fashioned one, and he's got to do it fast, with Archaludon getting lower and lower from the burn every turn. I go for Life Dew, healing Arcanine back to full HP as another Snarl comes out. Damage is adding up. Damage is really adding up. It's another double attack into Sligoo, but the Snarls are doing their job, and Sligoo remains healthy enough. Tailwind ends, and there's only one turn left inside the Twisted Dimensions. I could Life Dew again, but you know what? I Thunderbolt. I Thunderbolt Snarl. Try and win the game. Unless I've really misunderstood how Pokemon works, I think that's going to be a win for me. Because it's going to be really tough for him to break through Sligoo, Arcanine, and Trevenant still. Dragon Pulse again, he's -2 now. Just not doing any damage. He needs to have Body Press as his last move in order to have a chance, but he's gonna run out of time. This Arcanine, who only has Snarl for damage, has actually put in so much work. And Sligoo, my 1-point pick, ends up being the clutch factor that we need to win this game. If this was Primarina, things would have been very different. We have not seen his last move. It could be Body Press, and if it's Body Press, Sligoo could go down here. That being said, I think it's a matter of when, not if at this point. Let's see, Archaludon reveals Dragon Pulse, that's not gonna be enough. And Sligoo, with 27 HP remaining, the 1-point Pokemon, KOs Archaludon, Joey's first pick, 20-pointer. And we're going to finals. Oh my God, that was so stressful. That was so stressful. Very good games to Joey. Let me tell him GG's. We've done it. We snapped the losing streak. And we not only proved that some Steel and Dragon type Pokemon are better than others, but we made finals. My first draft league in 5 years, and I'm back in the finals. But as you can probably imagine, it's a little bit too soon to celebrate because the final match is not going to be easy. In fact, my final opponent is one who has only lost 1 set this entire tournament. Everyone else lost at least 3. The final boss we have to face in the Wolfey Draft League is none other than our Week 2 opponent, captain of the Jubilife Piplups and wielder of the first pick Annihilate, James Beck. James has only lost 1 set this entire league. And the good news is it was to me, but the bad news is it was week 2 of the league, so James was definitely still getting used to his team. And the way that I beat him, like I super cheesed him. For finals, I won't be able to get away with that again. His biggest threat is his Annihilate, as I'm once again punished for not having a resistance to Ghost. And Annihilate's Rage Fist can KO every Pokemon on my team if it gets set up. James has 2 good ways of setting up Annihilate, with Icicle Spear Ninetales and with Scale Shot Crocodile. But Annihilate isn't the only threat I have to consider. His Kilowattrel outspeeds my entire team, and can even outspeed my Primarina and Tailwind if it's holding a Choice Scarf. But I can't over-rely on Trick Room without some help because his Hydrapple is slower than every Pokemon on my team except for Sligoo, who isn't especially good here. His Blastoise is an issue as well, since I don't have an electric type and my only grass type is Trevenant, who I need to train heavily in defense and HP in order to survive all the super effective moves that James has for it. My first priority has to be to stop Annihilate and a side attack lead, which means my only option is to lead 2 Pokemon that are faster than Ninetales. Of course, I only have 1 Pokemon who's faster naturally, which is my Noivern, so I'll have to pair it with a Choice Scarf attacker. In this case, I'm going with Mamoswine. It hits many of James's Pokemon for super effective damage, and can combo with Noivern for a KO on over half of James's roster, which is assuming I run an offensive Noivern. I'll go with Life Orb this week, to get more damage while still being able to protect against the ice moves that I'm sure James will bring. The issue with Choice Scarf Mamoswine is the fact that once I've selected a move, I'm stuck using it until I switch out. In order to let my Mamoswine fully shine, I need a safe way to switch it out, which effectively means that I need a Pokemon that can switch in against James's team. This week, there's really only one option, which is Assault Vest Thick Fat Hariyama. It's a bulky drain tank that can actually take hits from most of James's Pokemon, buying me some room to reposition. James's team is full of fast and powerful Pokemon,
So if I get Trick Room up, I can win. To do that, I'm bringing Trevenant and Primarina. Primarina this week is holding an item that I haven't used at all this season, the Iron Ball. It cuts my speed in half, which allows Primarina to underspeed Hydrapple and Duosion inside the Twisted Dimensions. The real tech this week, though, is Primarina's 4th move, Encore. It can heavily punish Protects, but it can also combo with Trevenant, who has Disable. Using both Encore and Disable together will force the target to struggle, and the nice thing is that these moves also work on their own. Trevenant this week is using Nightshade for some damage, as Poltergeist can be a bit unreliable. With 1 slot left on the team, I'm bringing back Focus Sash Espathra. It can solo Annihilate if it gets out of hand with bulk up boosts, and it also pairs with both Primarina and Noivern. After a speed boost, I'll outspeed James's entire team, and after 2, I'll get Choice Scarf Kilowattrel and most of his other Pokemon in Tailwind. But despite being speed boost, this Espathra is also running Trick Room. This is my ace in the hole. Reveal speed boost and then twist the dimensions. It can be difficult for Trevenant to get Trick Room set up, so Espathra gives me another way. Once inside of Trick Room, Espathra can start going for Helping Hand, using the priority of Helping Hand to attack first, despite Espathra's rising speed. This is it, my final team for my final match. James's team is really scary. He has so many threats that demand attention. I played 6 practice sets to get ready, 3 against Zane and 3 against Aaron, and I lost 4 of them. It's not impossible, but it is difficult, and I need to be extremely ready to adapt on the fly. For now, I'm out of time. The final match of the Wolfey Draft League is here. James and I connect, and immediately things aren't what I expected.
Okay, he does not have Ninetales, which is not what I was expecting.
James's weird brings don't stop there. He's left behind Crocodile too, which means he has no way to boost Rage Fist, and he's also left Hydrapple behind for Duosion. I have prepared for all of these Pokemon, I just didn't think I'd be facing them in this specific combination.
My plan was always to do Noivern plus Mammo here, but to be honest, I'm kind of thinking about pivoting to a Espathra lead. I'm gonna go with my original plan, in part because I haven't had time to think through these specifications. The battle begins. Sash Cinderace, okay? And Assault Vest Blastoise.
Now, I outspeed both of James's Pokemon, but this position is actually really complicated. If I want to get rid of Cinderace, I have to attack it with both of my Pokemon, but it could protect, and that would let Blastoise go for an Ice move to KO my Noivern. Or Blastoise could fake out Noivern while Cinderace KOs Mamoswine, which would be a losing trade. What should I do?
I'm gonna play defensive, I don't love it here. I just didn't want to lose the game on the first turn. Hariyama, because it has Thick Fat, is actually a pretty reliable switch in here. I guess the Cinderace probably isn't going for Protect here. Okay, coaching. Unfortunate. I wanted to go Earthquake plus Air Slash here. Just for Ice Spinner, so it's physical Blastoise, and I do not have great ways through that.
That's not good. James perfectly punishes my defensive play, boosting his Blastoise while not giving me anything in return. I fake out Blastoise and Air Slash Cinderace, and I do good damage, but I don't get the flinch. And James boosts Blastoise again, putting it now at +2 in both attack and defense.
I could go for Terra Fire Air Slash here if I wanted, because I do think I actually need damage, and I don't actually need my Terra for anything else, so it's a little bit risky, but I'm gonna go for Terra Fire Air Slash here and Drain Punch into the Cinderace. I don't love this play, but I also think it probably is correct. The other option is Terra Psychic on a Espathra, which I just don't feel like is as important here for damage. Like, I'd rather try an extra Noivern attack is worth is like more valuable to me than a damage boost. He doesn't protect. Honestly, it doesn't look like a lot, but it will add up. Let's see if he goes for a third coaching. He does third coach, okay. And it's +3/+3. Spinner, okay. So I survive a turn because of this play. Still does a lot. 131 into 76, right? Or did I mess up? I guess it probably does have Aqua Jet, which is bad. Like, I bought myself a turn, but maybe it actually wasn't worth it. Here's Kilowattrel, okay.
That turn looks good. I predict the Ice move, I give myself a Pokemon lead, but I've actually just put myself incredibly far behind if this Blastoise does have Aqua Jet, because all my Pokemon will be outsped and threatened by the 2 Pokemon on the field. I decide to scout for Aqua Jet and try and get the bird. My Hariyama has Ice Punch, and the odds of Ice Punch into Bullet Punch KO and Kilowattrel are actually quite good. Noivern protects, blocking a Thunderbolt, but Blastoise reveals Wave Crash, and it KOs Hariyama in 1 hit.
I died.
I go into Espathra. Is there any way to win this?
So the question in my mind becomes, what is the item on the Kilowattrel? Because he went for Thunderbolt.
I think my best chance at winning is to hope that the Kilowattrel is Choice Scarfed, and that the Blastoise doesn't have Aqua Jet. If both these things are true, I can switch Mamoswine into a Thunderbolt, and then try and KO Blastoise with the combination of Lumina Crash and High Horsepower. It's not great, but it's what I can do right now.
He does have Aqua Jet. And he kills me. Okay, that's not good. I think that's just gonna be the game then. But actually, given how he's set this up, there was nothing I could have done. And he has Tailwind. Okay, so he's not Scarf. And does he Wind Power? No, okay. So I think this is just a loss, unfortunately. I will confirm the item on the Kilowattrel. It's Life Orb Kilowattrel. Okay.
With both my Pokemon slower and vulnerable, this game is looking doomed.
I don't really see a way to win this. I think my only option is that he makes a pretty big mistake here. I go for Protect, Life Orb Kilowattrel with competitive. Survive. It doesn't double me. Maybe I need to limit him to. Oh, I crit. It doesn't really matter because of the Tailwind, but it does matter because I get to find out the last Pokemon, which is valuable.
James sends out Annihilate. He terrestrializes it to Ghost, and Thunderbolt KOs my Noivern, as I protect a Spothra from Rage Fist. With only a Spothra left, there's nothing more that I can do. I lose game 1. One more loss and the tournament ends. I need to turn things around.
So the big thing that I notice is that his team doesn't have a ton for Trick Room, but I think it's obvious that my adjustment is going to be Trick Room game 2.
That being said, I don't have much of a choice. I need to twist the dimensions. Then again, I do have a choice about how I set Trick Room up. For what could be the final time the battle begins. This time my lead is different though. I've got Noivern and a Spothra. I can't afford to have a passive turn 1 here.
So he's just gonna go for the same play again, right?
I need to get ground, even if it means giving up Noivern.
This could flinch. 30% of the time he doesn't get to attack. Bad crit, really, really bad crit, because now he's in Blaze range. Okay, coaching. It's +1/+1. -2. There's Ice Spinner, okay.
With Noivern down, I am at a Pokemon deficit, and I need to get it back. Now's the time.
So here, I think I need to go for my surprise move. I think that's my best way through. I go into Primarina. Here, I haven't revealed it yet, and I go for Trick Room plus Moonblast. He could have Terra Blast, actually.
James is Terra Grass Blastoise, and I've only seen 3 of the moves. I don't know if the last one is Fake Out or Terra Blast. If I think he's going for Terra Blast, I can go for Terra Steel, but that makes me weak to Cinderace and worse, Annihilate. It also means Trevenant will stay weak to Annihilate, but I won't have the defensive Terra option. I still want to go for Steel Terra, but suddenly I'm down to 3 seconds left. With no time, I protect. Better safe than sorry.
Okay, that's Protect. Aqua Jet, okay.
Trick Room is up. Hitting Blastoise would have been better, but for the first time all set, I'm in the driver's seat. Now I can try and get rid of the turtle. But James switches into Duosion. Helping Hand comes out, causing Cinderace's Sucker Punch to fail. And Moonblast does a huge chunk of damage to Duosion. Now, normally Duosion would move before Primarina, but with the Iron Ball, my Seal is still slower. And here that means faster. James protects Cinderace, as Helping Hand Hyper Voice KOs Duosion. James goes back into Blastoise. What makes this position difficult is the last move on Blastoise. If he has Fake Out, Helping Hand and attacking with Primarina won't do anything meaningful if he Fake Outs the Prim. And worse, he could KO my Espathra with Pyro Ball in that turn. I decide to hedge, going for Protect on Espathra and Hyper Voice to hopefully KO Cinderace.
Here's the Terra on Blastoise, so I guess he does have Terra Blast. I don't know if he has Fake Out is the issue. That's why I have to go for Protect here. Okay, he just lets me take Cinderace, which is good. He does have Terra Blast. Okay, well then I don't feel so bad for making the move I made earlier. If I'd gone for Lumina Crash, I'd be in good shape, but I survive, okay. I'm not in Aqua Jet range. There's 1 turn left of Trick Room. And last one's probably Annihilate, right?
It is, and with only 1 turn left in Trick Room, I have a choice to make. I know nothing about this Annihilate. Well, I know some things. I know that it has Rage Fist and that it isn't Choice Scarf or Assault Vest or Focus Sash. If it doesn't have Protect, I can go for Helping Hand and Moonblast for a guaranteed KO. But if it protects as Blastoise takes a KO, then I'm in pretty big trouble. I decide to try and save Primarina and rely on Trevenant to set a second Trick Room. With Encore and Disable unrevealed still, I think doing this can win me the game if I'm careful. I switch Primarina out.
It's possible this is Assault Vest Annihilate, in which case I think this is the wrong move. Trevenant comes out. It's Covert Cloak, okay. He has Protect. Okay, then I made the right move. I super made the right move then. I mean, honestly, I didn't really have a better option.
We're both down to our final 2 Pokemon. Just 2 Pokemon stand between me and elimination. However, I'm still in this because my Trevenant has Mental Herb. Even Taunt can't stop me from going for Trick Room. And if I get another Trick Room up, there's a good chance that Primarina can still win this.
He has Protect, he has Rage Fist, he surely has a fighting move as well, right? Phantom Force. That's gonna win the game, I think. Phantom Force as well. An Ice Spinner, so he just totally calls it. I think he just wins the game on that. Good job. Well played to James. I don't see how I could possibly win now because I don't survive Phantom Force. The whole reason I thought this was winnable is because Primarina could encore and disable my way through the Annihilate. But because Annihilate has vanished from the battlefield, I can't target it with either move this turn. And that's a problem because Phantom Force hits through Protect. And that means, thanks to the damage that Terra Blast did earlier, I have no way to save my Primarina. My only hope is that for some reason, James targeted Trevenant with Phantom Force instead of my Prim. I have to hope for it. I Terrestrialize Trevenant to normal as Primarina KOs Blastoise with a critical hit Moonblast. But it doesn't matter because Phantom Force KOs Primarina. I'm down to only Trevenant against Annihilate. If I can disable James's fighting move, Annihilate won't have any moves that hit Trevenant. Of course, disable doesn't last forever. But maybe, just maybe, if I win a ton of mind games, I can whittle away at the ape and somehow win. It's a pipe dream, but it is still technically a win condition, and I'm gonna play to it. I protect, as James does reveal Drain Punch. That's gonna be tough for me. If he protects here, he wins the game, like, because then I can't disable anything anymore. Nice play. Honestly, exquisitely done. Very well played to James. Yeah, he prepped very well and he played really well. I think that he really showed off one of the strongest ways you can play in Draft League, which is he had a strategy and he went for it. Whereas with my strategy, I think I was a little bit scared to go for it. And yeah, like he had good tech. He caught me off guard with the Terra Grass game 2, Terra Blast, and he didn't go for the Terra Blast on the turn where I thought he would. Like he honestly played really well, managed the information really well. And now the reason why that's a guaranteed loss is that I can now no longer protect, let him go for Drain Punch and then go from there. So I'll like make the right plays, like, but Trevenant doesn't survive Drain Punch from here. So yeah, the Phantom Force ultimately is what did me in. And the brilliance actually of his play is that by going for Phantom Force and Ice Spinner, it wasn't even a read. Like basically there was nothing I could do in that position because Primarina was always going to go down there because I let it take too much damage from the Terra Blast. So yeah, Blastoise was really the MVP here. And I think, yeah, really showed its stuff. So Drain Punch comes out, Trevenant goes down. Congratulations to James for winning the first season of the Wolfey Draft League. So really well played and well prepped. His team is really scary. And yeah, I think I actually had a pretty good position in the mid game here, but his tools were just really good and he just played exquisitely, like really well done to James. So, and with that, the Wolfey Draft League has its first champion. A huge congratulations to James Beck with one of the most dominant Draft League performances that I have ever seen. Now, if you've made it this far, I would like to say a few things. First, thanks for watching. I love Draft League, and the only reason that I was able to invest 3 months into it is because of people like you who watch the content and support and buy merch, but of course watching helps a ton. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the 7 other coaches who invested a ton of their time and energy into being a part of this league. I strongly recommend checking out each and every one of their channels if you haven't already. Draft leagues are a huge time commitment, so I can't say right now whether or not we'll be doing a season 2. Being direct and pulling back the curtain a little bit, it'll depend on how this video does. What I will say though is that I had a blast this season, and I'm so glad that I decided to return to draft, regardless of what happens next. Last thing I'll say is that if you would like to get merch, you only have through the end of the year. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this draft league and you want to see another video like it, check out this video I made that combined an auction with a draft league.